Very good morning to you. Welcome along to OTB AM this Thursday morning, and we've got a show for you today. Kieran Donaghy is with us in studio. Good morning to you, Kieran. How are you?
Morning, Joe. How are you?
Plenty to get through, including the capitulation of Manchester United at home against Man City in such an abject performance. That's the end of it now. I see people pouring scorn on Man United, saying it's going to be such a long way back from here. It could be a decade in the wilderness for them.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be that long if they back Ole Gully, but like it's just from the high of how great he was as a manager there, when they got the bounce off him coming in, and all of a sudden all the players that chose to put down tools for Jose were now all of a sudden they were all rampant and flying around the pitch, but they've seemed to revert back to the norm last night. But again, City are at a real top level now at the moment.
What was the line? The production line is finished. Is that the line that Brawley had about Kerry?
Yeah. I don't know, is the production line finished in United, because the old Kerry production line didn't have 300 or 400 million to spend in the summer to bring in players, but United are going to have to do that. Like I remember United fans telling me they were laughing at Liverpool spending the 75 million for Van Dijk at that time, because it was big and it was a centre half and it's a big fee, but it's money for jam now when you look at what he's after doing, and they need to go in and really like, you can't just go in and buy a back four, because it'll take too long for them to get used to each other and they'll be making mistakes and everyone. But you do need to certainly go out there and get one or two big marquee names that are just going to make you that bit more solid at the back. But they have issues all over the pitch.
Somebody had a list of 800 million worth of transfers that they spent, and they made the case that you could literally say not a single one of these has been successful. That all of them. It was Cara Kane, was it his? Yeah, so he's to blame Solskjaer. This is the money MUFC has spent since the summer of 2013. It's hard to look at the list and argue there's been the expected level of return, been any value for money from a single player on it. Not one. Serious indictment of the transfer policy, and then he lists all of them. Fred, 53 million, Dalot 19, Lukaku 76, Matic 40, Lindelof 31, Sanchez 30 million in wages, Pogba 94, Mkhitaryan 38, Bailly 34, Ibrahimovic free with the wages, Martial 54, Schneiderlin. I remember they spent 30 million on Marty Schneiderlin. Depay 31, Darmian 16, Bastian Schweinsteiger. What the hell were they thinking? Angel Di Maria, Luke Shaw 34 million, Di Maria was 68, Herrera 33, which is obviously disappearing out the door on a free transfer. Rojo 18, Blind 16, Falcao 6 million, Mata 40 million again going on a free, and Fellaini, I don't know, did they get any money back for Fellaini, or did they just like,
I don't know,
801 million pounds sterling.
Jesus, yeah, that's
a billion euros.
Yeah, when you look at that list, it's actually scary, because
10 million back on Fellaini. So there you go.
Yeah, 10 million back. Well done, they'll be delighted with that. They only lost 781 million. So, but yeah, when you look at that, like, and you look at the money that has been pumped into the club, it's huge amount of investment, and they've got absolutely nothing. It's like going out buying 10 houses and the arse falling out of the market straight away. They
won an FA Cup and a Europa League. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the level they're at.
That's really going to keep the United fans happy, that one. But yeah, but like, look, they're going to have to learn from that, because I think the English Premier League are almost being made look fools when they go out into the market and buy players. You look at all these other teams around Europe that are finding these players, and they go get them for decent money. And I think once the Premiership teams come sniffing around any club players in Europe or even around the world, I think they go, the Premier League, they have loads of money. We're not getting our player for 40 million. And then the club is under pressure to buy a player. The fans want more people brought in, and your man's there getting ready to write the cheque and go, well, look, okay, we tried him with 30. They said, no, we tried him with 35. They said, no, look, let's just give him 40.
Yeah.
Whereas if that's the same, if that's somebody in Italy or, another club around Europe that's buying the same player, they get him for 30, because the club selling know that this is probably what they got. Whereas I think all the Premiership teams are so engulfed with money that they're being made pay ridiculous amounts for these players who, when you look at their names up there, who's a real genuine star there? Like, Bar's Zlatan probably, and he did big things, got big goals, but he's that character that, you nearly want in a team that's going to demand stuff. And
he was also at the very end of his career, really.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like it was peak Zlatan.
Yeah.
You weren't getting him when
you weren't getting him peak, but he still had big moments for them. Like, I would still say he delivered when he was kind of called upon.
The one counterpoint to the English clubs getting destroyed for transfer fees is you look at Liverpool and you look at Spurs, who I think might still be making a profit over the last couple of years in terms of their transfer dealings. If you've got a brain somewhere along the way, there are inefficiencies in the market that you can go, so Andy Robertson only cost 8 million quid.
Yeah.
like somebody at Liverpool knows what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, when Andy Robertson was signed, I wasn't like, oh my God, they've got this brilliant left back in their hands. No. I wasn't, but maybe that's my knowledge not being up to scratch. But like I was looking at him kind of going.
But even the Liverpool fans for the first 6 months were like.
Yeah, exactly. And next thing all of a sudden they start getting his stats and how much ground he's covering. He's very good in the ball. He's like an energizer bunny up and down the left wing. You can't, like that he's got a great attitude. And I think when you look at all those United players, who's got the great attitude in that bunch? Yeah. And if you're going to try and build a successful team, you need guys with attitude. You need guys with the right character and culture, and that are going to buy into the club, but that they have enough pride in themselves that they respect their own game enough that they say, look, I'm going to go out and deliver no matter what happens, no matter who's not playing well, no matter who's managing me, no matter what the scenario is, I'm going to go out and play my game. Whereas I would say a lot of those fellas, when the going gets tough, they're found wanting, and I would say everybody on that list that you just put up there is. They're
all individuals as opposed to they want to be teammates. So let's play you this. Roy Keane and Gary Neville obviously in the Sky studio last night. Roy Keane's gone viral as you would expect after a performance like that. Probably a bit more interesting than the footballing show. Have a look.
The body language as well is not good enough for this shirt. You have to give, I would say, your life on the pitch.
What do you think listening to that, Roy?
I wouldn't believe a word he says. There's no meaning behind it. I don't even think he believed what he was saying there. He said it got a bit heated after the game, I think, against Everton. I heard they're actually throwing their hair gel at each other. These are the same players that threw Marino under the bus, and they will do exactly the same to Ollie. Leopards don't change their spots. There's too many bluffers at this club to get United back to the very top.
By the top, you mean one or two? Top's usually one.
If that's a player giving it their all, then Man United are in bigger trouble than I even think, and I think they're in huge trouble.
I think they just, by this time, I think that they've just been running to the ground.
Oh, Gary, it's 2 yards, man. I guarantee if you'd done the same, but do you think we'd be telling you off? Gary, he's back there. He's already back there.
His legs have gone. I think his legs have gone. I think his legs have gone.
It's 2 yards. Get out to him. Like you like depends on it.
When did they get the first goal?
53, I think.
So you suggest the legs have gone after 50 minutes?
There's people running, but the balls, that's the danger. There's only one ball, go and close it down. Don't worry what's going on over there. Close the ball down. I mean, that's the basic. At Manchester United, and the fact Ollie's got to discuss it after the game, and again the following few days about his players not being up for a game of football, he must be hugely embarrassed.
Well, I've always, with Roy, I've always had a great relationship with him, and how do you say, his opinion is, I value his opinion very highly. He's a Man United guy as well. He hurts just as much as anyone else connected to us that we are so far behind City as we are. And of course that's my job though, to make sure that when we come back pre-season that I have the right characters.
Do you think he's going to get a full pre-season? Do you think that it hasn't... Man United are going to be like, oh, sorry about that, Ollie, we made a mistake. Look, it's one of those contracts, 28 days, we can rescind it. Here, Lloyd's going to rip it up. What contract?
I told you on Shotclock there a number of weeks ago when Chelsea brought in Di Matteo, we won the Champions League. He was the best man of all time. He was kissing Abramovich. I told you I'd win it. And 5 or 6 months later, he was gone, and we were getting in another big high-profile name. So I hope they don't. You know, I really thought when he came in and the players did show the bounce, you know, and that he'd got him back playing, but to go so long now without a goal is worrying. A lot of your main players not playing well, it's worrying. And I remember us saying that time like that, you know, should they just hold and see how the end of the season goes? Because let's call a spade a spade. His first 6 or 7 games weren't against any level of competition at all. I think the first big game they won is they went to Arsenal and won 2-0, I think, but might have been Tottenham, but they're basically their first 6 or 7 games are against all teams in the bottom half of the league, and they got them bounce and they got the results. But you know, you would have fancied if you would have taken them over Ger at that stage of the year. I think you could have got them to win those 6 or 7 games. And that's no dash on you.
When you think about it, Van Gaal is one of the most experienced managers in world football. Mourinho, one of the most experienced managers in world football, and very deft at managing the politics. And they both got overwhelmed by the situation at Manchester United. They couldn't any longer manage that squad to get the best out of them. Like, it's a very, very big job. And unless they change the structure, then they're completely screwed. They need someone who will look after that transfer policy and get rid of the 800 million quid worth of nonsense and try and spend the next 800 million quid on good players and players who fit a style of play and fit a team structure, as opposed to, I'll have you and you and you and you and you. Off you go now and make that a team. Yeah. Manager X.
Yeah, it's been PlayStation stuff, really. Do you know what I mean? It's your championship manager stuff. You're just going out buying all these good players and hoping they fit in without. I don't know how much is put into paying out the big money that we see for a lot of those players. Like what was actually, like, how much was put into it? Like, you know, was it a case of we needed a centre midfielder? Okay, this fella Fred from Brazil, he's good. We've seen a few tapes of him. We've had a fella over a few games.
Yeah,
let's go after him.
What's the strategy?
Yeah, but are you not watching that guy every day for a year? If you're a club like United and you've got all these scouts around the world, like
yeah, if you do have somebody, who is that guy?
Yeah. Who are they? Are they when he comes to the manager or comes to the director of football, kind of going, yeah, there's this fellow out in Sao Paulo. He's brilliant. We got to go get him. He's got a great attitude. He walks around the pitch. He's got a first touch. He can shoot. Yeah, okay, stay out there, watch him every game, travel around. Yeah. Like, don't tell me they don't have the money for that.
No, they definitely
And if
do.
you come back and say he's big, let's go after him. But
all right, competition time. To mark the launch of Liverpool's new 2019-2020 home jersey, which is dedicated to Bob Paisley, we've got a jersey to give away every day this week on OTB AM. The new kit is available to pre-order online and at the official LFC store in the ILAC Centre in Dublin ahead of the 9th of May, when it will also be available to purchase in-store and online. We have the only actual jersey in Ireland in the studio here on OTB AM. Yesterday we asked you to tell us which Liverpool manager brought Fernando Torres to the club. The answer was, of course, Rafa Benitez. There you go, there's the picture of Benitez, and this is the jersey. You like this?
It's nice new jersey.
It's nice and simple.
Yeah, I like simple. It's going retro on all these jerseys. The more simpler the
old school retro jerseys. I saw a movement to bring collars back. I'd like to bring collars back.
Yeah,
they work.
Why were you a Cantona man in the five side?
Yeah, you gotta stick the collar
Stick it up.
Come on, why not?
Yeah, if you can get away with it. You gotta back it up a bit though.
Gotta be careful a minute.
You can't be tugged out with all the gear and the collar up and making absolute balls of everything. You get told off pretty quick.
Yeah.
Put down your collar.
Also got to be careful mentioning Eric Cantona at the moment. To win this morning's jersey, just tell us who Bob Paisley replaced as the Liverpool manager when he became the first team manager at the start of the 1974-75 season. So, who did Bob Paisley replace as the Liverpool manager? Leave a comment for us wherever you're watching this. If you're on Twitter, just use the hashtag OTBAM. If you're on YouTube, you can drop into the comments there, or if you're on Facebook, just type in the answer to that question, and you'll be with a chance of winning the new Liverpool jersey, which we have the only one of in the country. So here's what's coming up. Sports Page is going to talk a little bit about Roy Keane and Manchester Derby. Daniel Harris is going to join us on that. Shotclock coming your way 25 minutes past 8. Second half of the show, as for 25 past 8, we've got the NFL draft is on tonight. It's really on Friday morning, early Friday morning. Kicks off around about 1 o'clock in the morning, East Coast time. Mike Carlson is going to explain to us some of the various bits and pieces going on, and then Liverpool's title dream. We're going to talk about that around about 9:15. Time now, though, for the sports pages. So I'm going to start here with the Irish Times, and the front of the Irish Times sports section is City take giant step towards title with win at Old Trafford. That's basically the main story in all of the papers today. Blue Machine stutters a little bit, motors on, and then even Mary Hannigan watching the TV stuff last night. Night turns out blue in Manchester and in Liverpool. United fans caught somewhere between the devil and Deep Blue Sea in a rocket. I don't think Man United fans, they wanted to win the game, right? Like, is it really the worst thing of all time if Liverpool win the league? Is it that much worse than Man City winning another league and becoming the dominant team? Like, you know.
Absolutely, I don't get it. You know, of course, there's the whole thing of we Manchester United fans and Liverpool fans for years, going back to when you're in first and second class and you start following teams and the banter of slagging. It's really hardcore between United and Liverpool because the predominant teams in the country of our generation were United and Liverpool. Before that, you'd Leeds and all these other teams, but it was United and Liverpool. But I saw Rory Story's sketch last night. So he goes into the Jacks after he had Liverpool top on. Your man was a United fan and absolutely slating your man, like, you know. But yeah, absolutely, they would get, like, there would be a level of frustration there. But at 100% I'm with you. I want to win that game against my rivals.
You're missing the point.
Yeah.
Man City are like, this new evil empire, and they will crush you for the next decade.
Liverpool are up the road a small bit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they haven't won one in 20 years. Like, you know, it's...
Yeah.
I'd let them have one before I'd let my City rivals have one. The Irish Daily Star, again, copped that. a little go at Liverpool, looking like City are in pole position now with 3 games to go. Another small one there, and John Delaney that FIFA are looking to seek FAI answers. And yeah, Roy Keane also saying that Pogba is a big problem, but that wouldn't be strange for Roy to say that.
So nearly there is the headline pun of the day from the Sun. Pep's men have one hand on the title silverware. There's a second one for you. And state of you. FIFA has asked the FAI for clarification on possible state interference in the running of the association, because obviously that's a big no-no from FIFA's perspective. They're the only ones who are allowed to run and interfere in the running of any football federation. Ireland boss Mick McCarthy would rather the FAI were off the front pages, but insists the administrative crisis has had no impact on him. He's obviously out doing a bit of media yesterday.
Yeah, the Irish Independent next. City's Silva bullet. So again, talking about Bernardo Silva and his big goal early on last night. Again, you've the FAI and McCarthy at the bottom. You also have here in the Gaelic Games, Shefflin, talk of succeeding Cody, disrespectful. Yeah, Henry will have that job in time,
Yeah.
but I think Brian Cody should be allowed retire whenever he wants and whenever he's finished, and the people of Kilkenny should be rolling out the red carpet from every time he goes in, because what he's done over the length of time that he's been in the job is literally incredible.
Yeah, and Shefflin's playing this perfectly. It's like, absolutely not, no way would I ever. Everybody else can say it. And that's how that works.
That's what happens when you win a club All Ireland and it's your first year of management, and you're the king anyway.
Yeah, so it's like he's very deft at handling all that kind of stuff. So
he's brilliant.
It's perfect. I'm going to do these ones really quickly. City's silver lining is the back of the Herald, and the back of the Daily Mail is silverware. Obviously the Bernardo Silva one, and then Philip Quinn has that story as well. FIFA demand answers over FAI debacle.
Yeah, the Times is one hand on the trophy again, mainly, and a small bit up here on the Leinster trio that are up for European Player of the Year.
Now the front of the Racing Post this morning is Johnson, I'll be going all out for a 5th title. So Richard Johnson, who's enjoying his 2nd most prolific season and has the 200 winner mark firmly in sight, had words of warning for any pretenders to his champion jockey's crown yesterday when outlining his hunger and desire for a 5th title next term. So that's next year's jockey's title in England that they're writing about in the Racing Post this morning.
And the Daily Mirror Sport, I think might get you for a pun of the day. Beautiful. City strike twice to sink United, turn the heat on Klopp. And another small bit in here about Van Dijk looks set to beat Sterling to the Player of the Year gong. So them individual awards are up this time of year.
Yeah, we'll talk about them a little bit later on as well. And then one last story so obviously this is the Telegraph, the look of champions, the same picture of Bernardo Silva, but it's the bit underneath. Farah and Gabriel Selassie war over alleged assault, blackmail claim and stolen watch. This is mental stuff. So Mo Farah was doing a press conference yesterday, I think in connection with the London Marathon.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere launched this attack on Haile Gebrselassie. So Haile Gebrselassie, one of the greatest runners of all time, an Ethiopian superstar.
Legend.
And it emerged that Mo Farah had been staying in a hotel in Ethiopia, which is owned by Haile Gebrselassie. Sir Mo is over there in Ethiopia training at altitude ahead of the London Marathon. And while he's there, there's a break-in to his hotel room, and a bunch of money, quite a lot of money, like it could be 5,000 or 6,000 euros in total, is stolen. He has dollars, he has pund sterling, he has euros, and he has dirar, which is the Ethiopian currency, and he's 2 mobile phones.
He's well travelled.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you always need a burner just in case, or whatever. Who knows? Who knows what international athletes,
Stealings you could be doing.
superstars need a burner mobile phone for, but he who was without sin. Anyway, so he writes to Haile Gebrselassie saying, here, sort this out. My money got stolen in your hotel. Radio silence from Gebrselassie. Another message from Mo Farah to Haile Gebrselassie going, here, listen, I'm going to do a press conference and I won't be responsible for what I say about your reputation or personality. Signed, Sir Mo. He signs his text, Sir Mo, to Haile Gebrselassie. He signs his text, Sir Mo. And Haile Gebrselassie is like, just blanks this until Mo Farah yesterday at the press conference shows the Guardian the text message, which is like a bit of a stupid move by Sir Mo. And Haile Gebrselassie shouts back with this like, hang on a second here, buddy. The stuff that was going on in my hotel, you left an outstanding bill. I had to step in to sort out a fight that you were having. Your entourage basically trashed the place, and it's like, wow, the beef is real. I want to inform you that I'm disappointed you've not made any effort to find my stolen money, wrote Sir Mo in his text. And especially on my watch, his wife had given him a Rolex. And obviously that's irreplaceable because his wife can't give him another Rolex. I have tried to contact you by telephone several times. Know that I am not responsible for what I say during the press conference in London and what influence it will have on your personality and your business. Greetings, Sir Mo.
Oh, Jesus. I don't know what to say about it. First of all, whatever about the Rolex watch, I'm sure Mo is in charge of a few bob when you're Sir Mo and you have a few Olympic medals. So yeah, look, it's tough, but people lose stuff all the time. But the money, what's the money? $2,000?
It was a bunch of different, maybe a bit more than $2.5 grand. Sorry, yeah,
$2.5 grand.
The watch is probably worth more.
The watch is probably worth more, but I'm sure if Mr. Mo sent an email to Rolex, Sir Mo, I'd give you a shout out if you send me up a watch.
He probably hasn't travel insurance.
Probably has insurance, I would say.
You think that
for a Rolex?
Yeah.
I know if I had a Rolex on, there'd be all types of insurance claims taken out in it, or insurance policies taken out in it, Yeah.
Yeah. There were multiple reports of disgraceful conduct, said Gabriel Selassie, which was not expected from a person of his high calibre and his entourage during his stay by the hotel staff. Gabriel Selassie went on to claim, Farah was reported to the police for attacking a married athlete in the gym, but due to my mediation role, the criminal charge was able to be dropped. So it turns out there's two sides to this story, and Mo Farah has poked the beast.
Yeah, he has. The Guardian, just again, all about... and just another, all about Man City's big win against United, and another small one, just... Neves leads way for Wolves as Arsenal's top four hopes are dealt another blow. So Arsenal, when Chelsea looked like to give them pole position again with a bad 2-2 draw at Burnley, Arsenal go away and lose 3-1 to a good Wolves side, and Liverpool have Wolves' last game of the season.
Oh yeah,
that could be a bit of a, because I know City have Burnley and away.
Burnley have just got their 40 points off, so they'll be on the beach.
Yeah. They might want to spoil a title packet for someone. It's when you've got the best show in town coming, everybody raises their game.
Maybe. Even if they'll
try.
Over.
They'll try, yeah.
There's a couple of other stories that we wanted to pick out today. So Kieran Whelan, I think, in the Herald today is saying that he's fairly confident that Roy O'Carroll will return for Dublin. Now, Kieran Whelan is well connected in Dublin GAA circles. It's like, whenever there has been an issue in recent years, you want to go and read what Kieran Whelan has to say to kind of get a sense of what Dublin GAA believes to be true.
Yeah.
So, unless it's just a flyer at this stage of the season and it's keeping, I don't know if it's a distraction or what, but like if he's saying it, you would think there's something to it.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't get why. It doesn't make sense to me if you were going for a 5 in a row and one of the players that has been on your team for a long number of years and left due to commitments to go away, that's now back. That's 29. That was an all-star and an excellent player. You'll be kind of going,
who fits a precise need that your team currently has.
Yeah, and again, and we talked about this earlier on, it fits a precise need because it's the only flaw that people can even attempt to find in this Dublin team is this little bit of a full-back. But, I think there's a few fellas in there would fancy filling the full-back jersey for this Dublin team and think they could win the All-Ireland. But he's probably the best of them, Rory, and he's away for 3 years, as we said a few weeks ago. He's a full-back, who cares? It's not like he's to get his touch back. He's going to be pulling and dragging and baiting fellas for balls, so he'll be just fine if he comes back in. But I would say Kieran Whelan has got that pretty good advice.
Yeah, he also doesn't think that there's much chance that Dermot Conley is going to make a return, which, again... we've talked about this, that there's been various stages during the league where they just needed a bit of a spark. They needed something. They needed somebody to grasp the game, to do something. And they have a team who grind you down through patterns and through consistency. And they don't currently have somebody who will just come and do something magical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's again, for us, as an outsider looking in, it just makes perfect sense, but we just don't know what the dynamic is, and if the dynamic is toxic, it's probably not going to happen. If people can put stuff aside and get buy-in from a guy from now till the end of the season, he'd be some weapon to have in a bid, as I said, in a bid for history, 5 in a row. But as a part of Jim kind of going, we've won it the last few years without these guys. And we're going to go win the 5 in a row without these guys because they're that good and they can do that.
Yeah.
But it's if you lose a semi-final or a final by a point, that's when
you will never recover from the what ifs.
You've only one chance. Only one chance. The closest I can get to what Dublin are going through now is going for the 3-0 against Tyrone in 2008. Everything going well, playing really good football, running to Tyrone in their beards in 2008, and you're walking off the pitch after losing by 2 points, kind of going, okay, it's a long way to get back here, and it's a lot longer to get back for that 4 in a row tilt. So. Or 5 in a row tilt. So from that bit of experience, I would be trying to say, if you've one chance to do it, go do it, and worry about all the smaller stuff afterwards.
Yeah. So one other thing I just wanted to bring up, Johnny Wilkinson's been doing a bit of press. Land Rover had this gig up in the top of the Alps, some snow rugby thing, and he's kicking drop goals, and he's talking about how he really enjoys kicking the ball now because that's part of it, reminds him of being alive, and he's talking very zen. I think Johnny Wilkinson had a bit of a personal journey into Buddhism over the last decade or so, and has emerged the other side as somebody who's much calmer with life. But he talks about the emptiness that he felt after winning the Rugby World Cup in 2003 and the pressure he put himself under because he wanted everything to be perfect. And that was the environment he came into as a 17, 18-year-old, playing with the best rugby team in the world, and then suddenly being the one who was responsible for guiding them through everything. He talks about being empty. I remember Conor Egan talking about winning the All-Ireland with Down, and in the immediate aftermath of the game he kind of looked up to the top of the stand and went, "Is that it? Is that it?" There wasn't this kind of overwhelming outpouring of emotion that you might have just expected. Mm-hmm. And people take winning very differently in different ways. You know, it's like you never know what's going on inside someone's head in the aftermath of something like this.
Yeah, you don't. And if that's going through somebody's head, that's after winning something. Can you imagine what the losing team is feeling? And but yeah, like when you win something that big. And you kind of come back to earth on the Wednesday or Thursday when you kind of get your head out of the fog a small bit and you finish going around to the few schools in the town or whatever, and you know there is a kind of a few days there going, Jesus, that was good, but you know I've got to get, you know, I suppose the athlete or the person in you got to go, we got to go do that again. You know, that's just the way it is, and you're always chasing that. And I was trying to explain that to the basketball team this year, like, you know, we're after winning something amazing, and the way we won it was amazing. Like, please understand me when I tell you this, enjoy it, because I've been on the other side more often than not. And, you know, you really do have to enjoy the wins because they're I kind of say that about the early part of my career, because when I came in, we were just winning, and it was, and then when we lost in 2008, we came back and won in 2009. So my first 5 or 6 years, it was 6 finals, 4 wins. And I don't say I took it for granted, but I just came in expecting that to be the norm. Probably like a lot of the Dublin players now, that these guys that have come in and all they've known is All-Ireland finals and all they've known is winning, and probably being caught by Donegal in 2014, and they would say in their heads that they'd already have the 5 in a row done. So it's you know, that chasing that is what got me up in the morning. I'm sure it gets a lot of these fellas up in the morning. And I think when you win in All-Ireland especially, there's so much history to it, and there's a crowd doing it every year. But maybe Johnny, with something like a World Cup that England had never won before, you know, maybe that did leave a big void in his life, and maybe he had to go down the kind of that road to kind of, you know, as you said, just get back to enjoying everyday life and not chasing that huge, you know, pressure goal of being the man that brings the World Cup back to England. Yeah,
I think the intensity was definitely something that he wasn't prepared for, and I'm not sure that anybody ever really prepares people for it. One last thing, Real Madrid have apparently offered Eden Hazard 400 grand a week netto after tax to join them in the summer. It's a lot of cash. Hard to say no.
Yeah, again, like, but how much is enough? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what's Eden Hazard worth right now?
That's nearly not quite. So the euro pound rate isn't what it used to be, but you know, if the tax rate
it's huge.
It must be 50%. He must be paying, like, at the marginal rate, that's 50%. That's 800 grand sterling a week. It's nearly $1 million a week.
Yeah, $1 million a week is mad.
Yeah, it is. It is mad.
Do you know, it's silly. Like, it's silly, but look, we're seeing it in the NBA, we're seeing it in American football. Everybody's splashing. Recession's over.
Yeah,
400 grand a week. We're okay out in Madrid
for this week. Yeah. All right, that's it for your papers. It's 16 minutes past 8 this morning on Thursday morning on OTB AM. Plenty more coming up for you in the show. Daniel Harris is with us next. Just to remind us that you can listen to the show every morning on offtheball.com if you don't want to watch us. We're just like a radio station over there. Offtheball.com. Hit listen, minimise and go about your morning. Reminder too that we have an amazing competition running at the moment on Off the Ball. We're giving you the chance to go to the Rugby World Cup in Japan. It's an amazing trip. Ireland against Scotland in Yokohama on the 22nd of September. So it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here. A brilliant prize. This morning, you can win a green ticket. So what we're doing is we're having a special roadshow on the 9th of May where all 100 winners of our green tickets will join us for a special show. At the end of the night, one lucky winner in that room will be heading off to Japan. We're asking you 3 questions at different stages on this morning's OTB AM. When you have all 3 answers, send them in to us. You must have all 3 answers before you can enter the competition. Question 1, who finished second in Ireland's pool in the 2015 Rugby World Cup? So the last time round at the Rugby World Cup, who finished second in our pool? That's all you need to know for now. Keep that aside. We'll give you questions 2 and 3 a little bit later on. Now, let's move on. Daniel Harris was at Old Trafford last night for the capitulation and the humiliation of Manchester United against Manchester City. Do you share the views of Roy Keane that this is terminal?
No, I mean, it's never terminal because it was terminal in the years before Roy Keane got it was much worse in some of the years before Roy Keane got there. In the early Alex Ferguson years, it was poor. I think at least now there is slightly more hope than there has been because I think there's a manager who may or may not be good enough, but he seems to have a good idea on which players are definitely not good enough, which we saw from his selection last night. I don't think he thinks Matic is good enough. I don't think he thinks Herrera is good enough. I don't think he thinks Mata is good enough. I don't think he thinks Lukaku is good enough. And he seems to have had enough of what Anthony Martial considers a hard night's work. And he may not be given the money to replace those players. He may not invest the money properly. He may choose badly. But I think that gives him one up on the 3 predecessors that he's had is he knows who isn't good enough.
It's hard. Okay, so definitely those players feel like they're not the right players. And yet, looking at the team selection last night, he did pick Shaw and Fred and Pereira and Darmian and Young and Lindelof and Smalling and Pogba, and you wonder if he thinks any of those players are good enough either.
I would say it's hard to say. Luke Shaw has improved since he came in. He might not be good enough either, and he doesn't appear to have the physique of an elite level athlete, I would say.
That's polite.
Yes, well, Lindelof is also improving and is someone who deserves more time. Smalling, we know, isn't good enough, except he would be a decent number 3, say. And I also think that if you put Smalling into City's team and gave him the work City's defenders have to do, and gave City's centre-backs the work that United's centre-backs have to do, you would probably be slightly surprised by what you saw. I mean, in the first half, for example, Vincent Kompany clearly didn't want the ball. United were pressing him on the ball, and he gave it away repeatedly, but didn't quite give it away to someone who was able to exploit it. I think that what United centre-backs are asked to do a lot of work, and why I've said repeatedly through the season that if United had got themselves a midfield, you would find the defence suddenly look better because United would be able to dominate possession. And you've seen in recent games, United couldn't dominate midfield, couldn't dominate the game against Watford, against West Ham, against Leicester. But never mind against teams like City, who are the best team in the country, who look like they're going to win the league. And when that happens, it means you're not going to make enough chances and your forwards are going to be feeding off scraps. And it means that your defenders are going to have a lot of work to do. And often the weight of pressure is going to tell because the more defending you have to do, the more the opposition is likely to exploit you. And defenders get, as well as getting physically tired, they get mentally tired. And you find that as the game gets into the second half, mistakes come in.
Yeah, look, that definitely makes sense. And you can see how a team is a team for a reason and they all are interlocking parts. If Solskjaer is to be given an opportunity to shape this, and we've seen that there has been some, at least semblance of tactical nous within games and from game to game when things were going well. The run that they're on at the minute, though, is the type of challenge that you need a lot of experience to be able to deal with, unless you have a proper clear out. Are we at the stage where there will be a proper clear out, where 8 players will go this summer, and where maybe he sacrifices somebody like David De Gea to raise money? I don't mean sacrifice, but like he accepts that De Gea moves on, and they just completely gut that changing room so that it is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's changing room from next season?
It very rarely happens that you see that many ins and outs. It's possible, but because if you think about the money that ought to be available, and of course, bearing in mind how the Glazers operate, none of this is set in stone or even likely. There's the money that they would ordinarily have in the summer, however much that is. Let's say it's 100 million, 150 million. Sounds absolutely ludicrous, but that's probably what there could be. Then there's the money that they withheld from Mourinho last summer because they didn't trust him. Then there's the money that they saved that they might have intended to spend getting Maurizio Pochettino, probably another 50 million. Then there's the money that they're going to generate with transfers. Perhaps they'll have to pay some players to go away, but you would expect that Ander Herrera's going to leave, that's his wages. Juan Mata's going to leave, that's his wages. And there is a big question to be answered about Paul Pogba, who is someone who there probably is money for. You get the impression that he does want to leave. And it's a difficult situation because on the one hand, he's clearly the most talented player in the United squad. He's clearly the best player in the United squad. And yet, he's not putting in the kind of effort that enables him to make the most out of his ability. He cruises through games waiting for something to happen. And if all he did was run around like a midfield player should, make some blocks, make some challenges, he would be a brilliant player and he would be elevating the level of this team. But he's 26 now, I think. That's not going to happen. The player that you see now is the player that he is. And so it's not necessarily the case that he is the best player to take United forward because it doesn't really look like the intention is there. So if you were to then sell Pogba as well, you in theory would have a load of money to spend. And then also the margin for error, not to have to nail absolutely every single signing. But if you're only signing 3 players into that squad, you have to absolutely take them off the set. They have to be perfect and they have to be mentally the right kind of players that you want, and they have to really affect change very quickly.
Is there the brain power within Manchester United to do that at the minute? Because we had a list of roughly £801 million that they had spent on players, and it's very hard to point to anybody who was an unqualified success from that. I think obviously De Gea would have been separate from that list, but there's roughly 800 million transfer fees and wages that have gone out if you include somebody like Alexis Sanchez, and you're like, none of these are really players that you're going to build a championship winning team around. So who is the overarching Krang here to make this thing work?
So, yeah, I mean, every signing since Van Persie basically has been, at best, a qualified semi-success. I think that Solskjaer is someone who probably has a good idea about what makes a good player because he was one and he played with lots. And I think you could say the same about Michael Carrick. But I do also agree that there is a lack of expertise in the current management team, in that there's no one who has a track record of success, really, in the particular job that they're doing. There's Mickey Phelan, who is someone who, it seems, is more someone it's good to have around, who makes people feel good, and that's important, but it's not going to help you pick the right players and do the right deals. So, yeah, there's no expertise and no track record of success in doing deals, and there's also no track record of success in blending a team together, selecting the right players. But I would say that Michael Carrick and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer played with such high-level players that it feels like it's impossible for them to at least watch the players that they're managing at the moment and think that they're good enough. Whether that extends to judging the players that they should sign remains to be seen. So it's unknown, but what you've also got is, previously, you had David Moyes, who thought a high-level player was Phil Jagielka, was clearly completely unsuited for that role. Then you had Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho, whose ideas were very different from David Moyes, whose ideas were very different from one another's about what constituted a good player. And also, they're not managers who are going to go somewhere and stay there for a long time. Van Gaal was basically doing his last job before retirement, and Mourinho never stays anywhere a long time. So they weren't people who were going to stay there and build something, who were looking for players who would be coming into their bests. They were looking for players who were going to immediately come in and do all the things that they wanted to do, and signing rafts of those players. Solskjaer wants to stay and build something which gives him an advantage over those guys, and also he has some good young players coming through, and it's advantageous for him to bring those players through because he's not planning to be gone in 3 years. He's planning to stay for as long as he possibly can. So the circumstances are better than they have been previously, and there are reasons to believe that Solskjaer and Carrick will be able to pick good players, but no evidence that they'll be able to do it whatsoever, so it's a punt. But then, if you look at someone they might have brought in, like Mauricio Pochettino, let's say, he's clearly an outstanding coach, but there are also questions about his signings in the transfer market, admittedly with far less money than he's going to have Solskjaer is going to have, but there are still questions about whether he has the expertise to come in and do that, given that he bought Clinton and G, given that he bought Vincent Janssen, given that he bought George's Kevin and Kudu. So there are questions about whoever might have come in. And there are questions about Solskjaer too, and questions in all the areas, but some reasons for you to think that he might have what it takes to pull it off, except things that are too good to be true usually are too good to be true, and most people in the world would take this job and fail at it, so you've got to assume it's not going to work, I guess.
Daniel, last point, we were talking about this a little bit earlier on. I think the Man United fans are missing the point when they were happier that it's going to be City than Liverpool who win the league. While the Liverpool rivalry is the old stereotypical traditional one, that was the ones that you had to knock off their effing perch, Manchester City have so much money and so much momentum that this might be the new normal, where they score 100 points in the league title every year, and you've got to get more than that to try and stop them. So derailing them in any way possible now, this was your shot.
It is, I guess, amusing in its way that Liverpool could get 97 points, lose one game, and still not win the league. But I think that if you're looking at it as a United supporter, you could, you try and look on the bright side, try and see it win-win. Perform well last night and stop Liverpool. Don't put up and stop City. Get beat last night and stop Liverpool. So it's either win-win or lose-lose. But I think, City now are settling into a pattern. I think you could see the way that they're attacking last night. If you look at when United attacked, and they did have some good situations, the balls were sort of arriving at Rashford and Lingard at shin height, at knee height, at hip height. So then what you require is a perfect touch from Rashford, a perfect touch from Lingard, who's read it, and then a perfect return and that kind of thing. And what you're seeing from City is simple passes in straight lines because the movement is good. I guess what might happen is that Aguero doesn't have that much longer left. David Silva is close to done affecting the highest level games. At least with Silva, they've more or less replaced him already with the nearest possible thing, to the extent that he even shares the same name. Aguero will be harder for them to replace, and if other teams start to get better at attacking and better in midfield, that defence is still nowhere near where a high-level defence needs to be. It's just that the midfield protects it pretty well by dominating the ball. As a United supporter, looking at in a biased way, I guess, or a partial way, you kind of tell yourself that Liverpool haven't won the league for 29 years and it's pleasant to keep adding years on, and perhaps they won't be able to reproduce that season. And it's also nice to look at it and you think, well, City's success is, I guess you might suggest that it's artificial because it just exists by the single biggest factor behind City's success is money of ill provenance. And so, you're consoling yourself with that kind of thing, really. In a footballing way, obviously, there's no real consolation. But not quite a week ago, the treble was on the table, the quadruple was on the table, and anything that isn't those things feels like a birthday present. So it doesn't almost matter who wins the league out of City and Liverpool because they're both bad, but neither of them are. I'm reevaluating everything I thought about not only football but my life, which looked like it might have to be done previously. So I don't. Liverpool winning the league, City winning the league, neither of them are excellent, but really you want your own team to take care of their own business. And on the one hand, United are quite some way off that, but on the other hand, there's probably more hope that they might be able to achieve that than there has been in a little while.
Daniel, great stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning. And happy
See ya.
birthday. Daniel Harris with us at 8:31 this morning. You're watching or listening to us here on OTB AM. Now, we got the Shotclock next for you. And after that, I've got James Horan chatting to Maura Trassa about Mayo's hopes for the season. But first, though, we have a special video for you. It's James Collins here. Luton star James Collins, who was called up to Mick McCarthy's last Ireland squad, joined Richie on last night's Off the Ball after he was named in the League One Team of the Year.
An absolute honour. When I found out that the Ireland staff were coming to the games, I just tried doing the best I could, and I tried to just not changing too much and sticking to my game. And I think every time they came to watch me, I managed to score, which was obviously a positive for me. But once I got that call up, once I got in that preliminary squad, I didn't want to get my hopes up too much because I didn't know if I'd make the final cut. But once I made that final cut and got in the squad for the qualifiers, there was not a happier man on the planet than me, because I'd started from the bottom. I've worked my way up, and to be recognised by your country and get that call up for the first time, it's such an honour. And it was a fantastic experience being away with the squad, seeing how them high quality players train and look after themselves and go about their business day by day. It was such a good experience.
All right, it's that time of the week where we bring you our shot clock. It's a very simple format. The two of us go head to head. We have 2 minutes to discuss a topic, and at the end of it, one of us wins. And we also bring you 5 minutes of uninterrupted, proper conversation about a topic that we want or a guest that we want.
I got a win last week when you weren't here.
Oh yeah, good. Who'd you beat? Nathan?
Nathan, yeah.
Kerry beating Mayo. Nothing's new there.
I gave it to myself, I must say.
Right, let's start with where are we going?
Yeah, we're going to start with last night after the City United game. There was calls from the Sky Sports team for Roy Keane to have a role in football high up at Man United, and what's your thoughts on that, Ger? Is he fit for that kind of director of football role?
I've been saying this for a little while. The best thing that Roy Keane can do in football is to sit in that studio week in, week out and replace Thierry Henry and bring a little bit of edge to proceedings. You could see just the body language. Joe Hart was a bit like, even Gary Neville, who's like unflappable.
Yeah.
Gary Neville, who came out of the Valencia gig smelling even better than he did when he went into it. It's like, oh, I tried this now. I know a little bit about it. There's the eye roll. That's like, there's a gif of him. There's a gif of him on Twitter this morning where he's kind of jumping on it. It's like he just wants. It's like that's his role in football. As we know, his role as an assistant manager at Ireland was not an unqualified success. Was not a success, really, when you think about the Stephen Ward WhatsApp. Is there a role in football for somebody like that? Yeah. On the couch, as a pundit. I know he hated punditry, but it's time for him to accept the 3 or 4 million quid a year that Sky are going to give him and sit on the couch week in, week out and make ourselves be more enjoyable, make football be more enjoyable for everybody.
Yeah, I think he's certainly, to watch him, and if he was on Sky every weekend, or you'd be absolutely glued to it every weekend, because he calls it as he sees it. And I think you're right on Neville. I think Neville's still a small bit scared of his former captain, and you can kind of see why Keane and even Sir Alex, when United were in their pomp, Sir Alex had control of the club, Keane had control of the players, and it was a kind of a perfect match when it was working. But I think his knowledge, and I think there's probably more of a look. He'd be great for him to be co-presenter on one of these shows, but I just think with his knowledge in football and his ability, as you can say, he's looking straight through those United players. I think he has a role where
no, you wouldn't respond to somebody shouting at you, would you?
No, but I'm saying, that shouldn't be his role. Like, I think he can be above that, where he's kind of just overlooking everything. There's no way if Roy Keane was director of football United,
ambassador in the prawn sandwiches brigade. How are you doing? Are you enjoying the game, lads?
There's no way if Roy Keane was director of football there'd be 801 million spent in that shit that we saw earlier on. There'd be just no way it'd be happening. Okay, so there might be a good role for Roy Keane. That's what they asked him last night, and yeah, it'd be interesting to have him on there. His
transfer record at Sunderland, Ipswich, not the very best.
Sunderland, he did okay at Sunderland. He got them promoted and kept them in the league.
Some doozies in that. 15 million quid for Craig Gordon. World record for a goalkeeper seems to be the one, the 6 out. Right, personal awards, they matter, right? We're looking back with Ruby Walsh at a roadshow last night. It's going to go out on the radio tomorrow night. I was looking back to go, he must have been Sports Personality of the Year at some point. Maybe that time that he won 4 races at Cheltenham in one single day, setting a record. Maybe he was Sports Personality of the Year. Not even nominated. Not nominated this decade. He's like the single most identifiable face in Irish racing. He's been in the vanguard of popularising the entire sport, taking it out of the niche that it used to be on Sports Stadium on a Saturday when you were a kid going, oh, Jesus, here comes this shit again, to actually make it something that everybody realises is a hugely vibrant, important part of our culture. Ruby Walsh is kind of right there and never nominated, not this decade, as RTE Sports Personality of the Year since 2010. I couldn't find the records going back beyond that, but he hasn't won it and he hasn't been nominated. Personal awards matter. It's time to recognise Ruby. It's time to recognise everybody, and it's time to take these things seriously.
For me, personal awards don't matter.
That's because you won Footballer of the Year. You've got one.
Yeah, but like,
ask Gooch, does it matter?
I don't think it does to Gooch. I think Gooch knows he's standing in the game. I think Gooch knows how good he was. Gooch didn't get Footballer of the Year. Footballer of the Year is normally picked in 3 or 4 games in the run into the thing. It's actually done all wrong. All Stars and Footballer of the Year. It should be managers voting from the first league game to the end of the season, to the end of the championship. That's your barometer. It has to be every game. That there's the Aussie rules do it where it's every game where they put the player in. Coaches in the NBA get to pick their All-American teams. They get to put the players in. That's the choice. The All-Stars are picked by the fans. So it doesn't matter. It never mattered to me. I don't think it mattered to Gooch.
Because you got one. It's grand for you because you got one.
But I don't even think is Ruby bothered about that.
I don't know, but we should be bothered that he didn't get it.
Yeah, I agree. He should definitely be nominated. It's an absolute joke. But you can say that I have one, and that's why I don't care. But I'm going on. I'll tell you, as a player, I played, and people always told me, my grandmother told me, managers told me, fans told me, you should score more, you can score more, you're turning down scores. I just didn't care who scored. I'm not one of the guys. I tell you, the person that cares about individual awards, that picks up the paper and looks to see how they scored and what they did.
Who's that handsome young man picking up his Player of the Year award in 2006?
Yeah. I had a good 4 games that year.
Paul Pogba's in the Team of the Year, it looks like, as voted for by the players, which goes to show you players know next to nothing. Trent Alexander-Arnold is right back. I don't know, I'm not sure about that. He was injured for a good period of time there as well. Aymeric Laporte alongside Virgil van Dijk, Ederson in goals, Robertson at left back, Pogba, Fernandinho, Bernardo Silva, Raheem Sterling, Sadio Mane and Sergio Aguero.
It's hard to disagree with
Nathan did his poll last night.
Screaming, yeah.
Who was screwed over the most by not being picked in the Team of the Year? Mo Salah, 22%, Eden Hazard, 14%, 4% David Silva, 60% Matt Doherty, all in capitals, just in case you missed what you were supposed to vote for last night from Nathan. Right, so we're moving on.
Yeah, we're moving on to the NBA playoffs, Ger. Your boys, the Golden State Warriors, lost last night. They're without Boogie Cousins. I think they're in a bit of trouble.
I'm not sure about that. I think once you've got Steph Curry in your team, all will be well. So they already have shown that they get a bit bored in these 4-game series. There's a game in and they're like, I mean, do we really have to put it on tonight? And then when it's put up to them, when there's a deadline, like a college student absolutely cramming, they're like, okay, we're back to our best.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like there's certainly a degree of that in their 2 losses to the Clippers. Obviously, the first one, they're up 31 points. There's no way they should lose, but I think there's starting to be a few cracks there. They're playing Golden State. If they beat the Clippers tomorrow night, they're playing Golden State, or they're playing the Houston Rockets, and I think they're going to struggle. And I'll tell you why, because they were the big 5. They were the big 3 originally when they had Draymond, Steph, and Klay Thompson. Then they were the big 4 when Kevin Durant came in. Everybody was saying, oh my God. Then they got Boogie Cousins. They were the big 5. Boogie Cousins is gone with a quad injury. They're going to miss him for the rest of the season. They're going to be going with Andrew Bogut probably instead. Draymond Green also isn't at the level he was at a few years ago. He's still going to give you the hustle and stuff defensively, but he used to be able to shoot the ball. His confidence is gone, so teams are standing so far off him. They're clogging up their lane. They're making it hard for everybody else. There's loads of stuff going on in the NBA playoffs. Unbelievable. Damian Lillard and Russell Westbrook having the beef that's going on, that went on, and then Dame hit the 38-footer from inside the logo, a logo shot we'd call it, so just from inside his own half, hits the game winner to beat Russell Westbrook and OKC last night. And them 2 boys have been going at it, and I absolutely thought it was brilliant. It was old school playoff basketball. I think there's too many guys in the NBA now. They're all buddy, they're all high fives, hugs before the game, hugs after the game, don't worry about it. I loved seeing Lillard and Westbrook, who genuinely don't like each other, not being afraid to hide it, calling each other out, going at each other hard, and made the best man win and the best team win in the end. Portland were the best team. they were the 3 seed, and they sit into Western Conference semi-finals waiting for down the road. But there's lots going on in the East. You've got the Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks, who'll be tipping off over the weekend, and you also got the 76ers, and the 76ers got Toronto Raptors. So the East semi-finals, the East Conference first round were poor, but the semi-finals are going to be brilliant.
Who's going to win it if it's not the Golden State Warriors?
The Rockets, who were my pick a while back. So yeah, I think the Rockets. I think they had the Warriors last year, and Chris Paul got injured, and he's the best true point guard in the league. A point guard who runs a team, sees the floor, gets the ball to the right guy all the time. Steph is the best scoring point guard, obviously, and Russ is the most powerful point guard. But I think Chris Paul, they missed him last year, and they were leading the series against Golden State, and ended up losing it altogether without Chris Paul.
Who was that player that you would have been at like that, who you actually properly hated I'm not going to make friends with you before, and I'm not going to make friends with you afterwards when you were playing?
I'm not necessarily don't make friends after them, because I was always a guy who kind of, any guys that would have been on international rules teams would have said that about me. Yeah, absolutely, I hated them when I was playing against them. But then if I got into an Irish setup and they were on my team and we had to win, I was very easy to forget about everything. And like Joe McMahon, hated Joe McMahon when his beer roaring in Tommy Walsh's face, his brother roaring in my face, Ricey popping into my ear from the other corner. There was all that going on. And then we're selected for the international rules, and I found out that when I was living in Tyrone for a year, I was in Joe McMahon's class, and we were best friends. We were best friends on that tour, as in we were often, Joe kind of slipped into the rounds with a few of the Kerry boys, myself and Tig and Tommy Walsh, so Joe wanted to test his abilities with us, and well able.
All right, let's move on. Paul Pogba, we were talking about this a little bit earlier on with Daniel Harris. Do you want to keep your most talented person, the one who is the transcendent talent in your group, or do you want to cash in, take the money and move on? Draw a line under the experiment and say, that was a failure, we're not buying players just because they're going to shift shirts and sell boots anymore. We've had enough of that.
Yeah, sell him, ship him, but the question is what are you going to get for this guy? We heard Daniel on about that he's the most talented player. For me, he does maybe 40 or 50 seconds of magic. Now that could score you a goal, or it could set you up a goal, but you're dealing with 88 minutes of putrid effort, putrid body language. As I said, there was the kind of like 5 or 6 games against very poor teams when Ole came in that it was almost like Pogba was kind of almost doing it to piss off Mourinho. He was kind of like going, okay, Josie, I'll show you why you didn't like me and why you didn't want me to get my Rolls Royce down after the game and not go on the bus with the rest of the team. And I'm going to show you how good I am. And he went around and did that for 5 or 6 games against, as I said, pretty poor teams. But I really, are you going to follow Paul Pogba into war? If he's charging down, Game of Thrones style, are you running in behind him? I know I'd be a good 4 or 5 rows back behind Pogba anyway, because he's going to get slaughtered pretty quick.
Could you just sign N'Golo Kante and play them the way they played for France and go, look, he's going to do all the work, you're going to do all the flashy stuff, but you got to help him out a little bit because he's your buddy?
He got away with it with France because he had a bunch of athletes around him, and I think we've seen United stats. I know they're not the best running team in the league. When he was with France, he had a bunch of athletes around him, and Kante, to be honest, there's 2 of N'Golo Kante's around the place, there's 2 of them on your team, so he's going to cover for my, if I was midfield with N'Golo Kante, he's going to cover for me, so never mind Paul Pogba. But I think he had a bunch of athletes around him with France, sure, and I honestly don't know what top, maybe Madrid, because he'll just be a name and he's such a big profile. That's the obvious one. Maybe him and De Gea going to Madrid for big money, and hopefully letting Solskjaer go away and try and build a bit of a culture and build a bit of United and weed these guys out, because they're toxic. I would say they're toxic in a dressing room, that kind of stuff. Like, I'd say if Roy Keane was inside in that dressing room with Paul Pogba, there'd be only one fella coming out.
Yeah. Manager patience is our next topic.
Yeah, manager patience. Yeah, go.
Yeah, so this is not necessarily the best week that I've ever chosen to make this, but it's about Stephen Bradley at Shamrock Rovers. Obviously, they're coming off the back of that 2-0 defeat down to 9 men against Bows during the week in the Dublin Derby, before the biggest crowds that we've seen in a long time, maybe ever, at the League of Ireland game. My point here is that last season, Stephen Bradley was under so much pressure because the results were really bad, but the Rovers board decided that they were going to have patience and they were going to see this experiment through, and they were going to give him the opportunity to make his mistakes. In Irish sport, that almost never happens. There's very few instances of managers being given an extra year to see what's going to happen and to come out the other side of it. Certainly not in GAA. You kind of go, a manager gets a first year in, it's like first year, and the second year doesn't go well, it's like off you go. There's a few examples where things have turned around. in GAA history. But I think Shamrock Rovers deserve a lot of credit for giving Bradley the opportunity. He is a young manager, he is cutting his teeth, this is his first gig, and it's the exact thing that we don't have in Irish sport is we're the tyranny of right now, and the current result and exactly what has just happened dictates policy, as opposed to we have a long-term view, we have a plan, and doing nothing is sometimes the bravest thing and the best thing for everybody involved. I think we need to have more patience in Irish sport generally.
I couldn't agree with you more, and we're getting it from across the water, I won't lie. There's managers that are brilliant. We just talked about it, Solskjaer was brilliant, and then I'm reading stuff about, should we get it? You said it at the top of the show, are they a bit disappointed they stuck with him now? So, of course, there has to be more patience given to managers. When you take over a team, it's going to take a while to get in, but whatever you're saying, Jar, the players are getting away with absolute murder. I'm sure the players didn't perform as well as they would have wanted for Shamrock Rovers last year. I'm sure the players are performing this year. And at the end of the day, the manager, unless he's a manager that's really has it wrong with the way he's playing and the whole stadium and the club don't feel it, absolutely, if it's kind of coming from that far down and you just hate the way they're playing. But like, you know, even me as a Chelsea fan, I called to keep Sarri, you know, months ago when people were saying that we were playing poor, we weren't scoring. But I just keep him because you have to give fellas a chance to embed their philosophy. We talked about Pep had an average first year and he's been flawless since. Give people time to get their message across, give people time to get their shape on the dressing room is huge, I feel. And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That's big. We have to have more patience for managers and maybe a bit less patience for players.
Okay, fair enough, which is interesting because obviously you've been on that side of things. We are going to put you on the spot this week. Before the championship starts, we're asking you to pick your top 6 forwards in the country. It's not your top 6 forwards in the country, it's a forward line. You can pick whoever you want. It's a blank canvas. You're the manager, and it's not an all-star team. It's a team of 6 who will be the forward half of your team.
Of my dream team?
Yeah. Who's on it?
I'll start at 12. Kieran Kilkenny, Dublin. True point guard on a football pitch, directs everything, has a great sense of game time scenarios, what's needed. He can do it all. He can go on the power pack run, he can kick the score, he can go through on goal, set up a goal, he can catch ball in the middle of the field, he can run all day, he's athletic, he's strong, he makes all the good decisions for his teammates, never shows any ounce of greed, and can win breaking ball. So from a modern day half forward, he pretty much has everything in the locker, his body physique and his strength. Went to Australia. It's a pity they didn't keep him down there, I won't lie.
He's 25.
Yeah, I think he wanted to come back. I think, to be honest, I think he could see what was on the cards with Dublin. I think he could see the type of players that he was going to be around, the setups he was going to be in. The juggernaut was just about taking off in Dublin, and I think he kind of went, yeah, I'm going to have a bit of this. They'd won the All-Ireland in 2011 around the time he was, I think he might have been down there or just back, but it's what he can bring in all facets of the game that I would definitely have him on at 12. Out of Shawnee O'Shea from Kerry at 11. Natural centre half forward is a very hard position to master, because you got to be out, you got to be in the dirty work, you got to be on the ball, you got to be getting back, you got to be helping the inside line, you got to be linking the inside line, you have to be out for the defenders coming out. It's a bit of everything. You have to have an extremely, obviously, big engine to do it, but you have to have ability. And Sean O'Shea has ability, not only from set play, from his kicking ability off his hands, which we played Kenmare this week in the club championship last Sunday down in Kenmare. Sean O'Shea kicked these 6 or 7 points, coming on the loop, coming around the shoulder, flawless. Like every time he kicked it, I was kind of like hoping for it to go wide. And the minute he left his boot, you could just, when I'm watching a player far down the pitch, when he kicks it, I just look at him, I don't look at the ball, because I can tell by his reaction if it's going over or not. And every time he kicked it, he just turned and started jogging out, so I knew it was a score. Set plays has been amazing this year. His frees have been absolutely brilliant in all types of pressure kicks, tough conditions, sideline balls, outside of the boot, inside of the boot. Has a bit of everything, so I'd have Sean O'Shea at 11.
Number 10.
10, Diarmuid Connolly.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What do you know that the Dublin management setup don't know?
That he's one of the best half forwards in the country, and that if I was picking a team for my life tomorrow morning, he'd be there. Number 10, right half forward, 6'3", can move, can glide across the top of the ground, can kick off inside and outside of both legs. A tough nut as well. Yeah, he's on my team because he's got a bit of magic. He doesn't suffer fools lightly. He's in your face. He's intimidating. He can back it all up with his football abilities. So, yeah, Diarmuid Connolly is in a 10 in my dream team.
Would he have made it in Kerry's team?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty easy.
On your team?
Yeah.
On any team?
Yeah.
He would be on any team anywhere, wouldn't he?
I think in his
any era.
Any era. I think on his day, because he struggled at the start for a while, but once he found his feet and got in a regular spot in the team, he'd do some things that'd frustrate you at times. But every player that has that bit of magic does that, But I think his general deliverance for Dublin in big games. That has to go into he'd get on any team because his football ability and his size, and he's just such a freak athlete. I think if you throw him on a football pitch 20 or 30 years ago, I think they wouldn't know what to do with him.
Yeah.
I know what they'd want to do with him, try and take that off him, but and probably get away with it if it was 40 or 50 years ago. But
he'd be getting away with it too when he's doing it back to you.
Yeah, he's big enough and strong enough to look after himself if he could. So yeah, he's on my team right half forward.
Full forward line?
Full forward line. Mannion at 13. He went away for a while. He went away for a year, and we all were like, he was a good player. But Jesus, since he came back, he's just it was like he went away and did weights for 6 months and just came back this physical specimen that was quick, that was direct, that really if you're gonna go out as a cornerback on Paul Mannion, you better be ready to deny him the ball and play in front and make him catch tough ball over your head, because if you're going to stand behind him, let him go out in front of you and win ball and get him turned, he's going to take you on all day long, which is what every good corner forward, if you're a young corner forward and you get the ball early in the game, you got to test your man's pulse, and there's no better fella than this fella, Ger, I think, to test your pulse, to actually go, look, get the ball, look you right between the eyes and say, I'm going at you and try and stop me if you can, and if you foul me, my buddy Dean is going to pop it over the bar in a way. So he's got a great way of taking men on. I think he's added goals, he kicked great points for Dublin, and he's really, in the last few years, he's really been one of the ringleaders for them, and I think right now on form, he probably gets in my team right now at corner forward. Himself
and Kilkenny are both 25, turning 26 this summer.
Yeah.
Which is mad. There's 2 months between them in terms of age. Mannion's 2 months older, but
exactly. Talk about the success they've known since they've come in. Is all it's been is success.
And they've another 5 years left at this level, and then another 3 years left where they're unbelievably experienced. And
and then they get to the period where we talked about in Shotclock a few weeks ago, where we say keep playing, boys. If you're Kieran Kilkenny and you're 35 and you can still move around out there, keep playing. So there could be 10 years left in both those fellas, Ger, which is kind of scary for the rest of the country, but that's what it is. I'll move on to full forward, and this was tough because we'd I'd kind of been Paul Ganey, Conor McManus and Michael Murphy, but Michael Murphy plays a lot out the middle of the field. Paul Ganey plays some in the corner. So I went with kind of McManus. I know he wears 15 a lot, but they play 2 men inside full forward line most of the time, and he just is electric.
Yeah.
I remember when he came on, he played wing back against us, and I think in 2007 in Croke Park in an All-Ireland quarter-final, when he was a young 18, 19-year-old. Just think of Kieran McMahon, or Colin McManus, there at wing back.
What was Banty thinking, do you think?
Obviously that he might do Tomás O'Shea and go forward and kick 3 or 4 points, because that's what he would have been thinking. I would say it would be this fella will attack here. He's obviously a very good footballer. Banty would have known. I'd say Banty said he's so good at football, I got to get him on my team somewhere. Maybe he wasn't there yet on a forward sense, but wing back in the modern day when you're going up and down the pitch and you can kind of get away with it. I think you're seeing more and more forwards kind of be utility halfbacks now. I think Ger Power would have a great career right now if he came into the setup, because Power he could play a bit anywhere. But McManus from Monaghan is just he's got everything. He's tough, he's ballsy, he kicks big scores. He kicks scores when you need them, which is what you want in a player, but he also goes for the juggler when the time is right. And I feel for him sometimes, because when it gets to these real big games, you know, I'm just looking in there and there's 3 or 4 fellas around him all the time, and you know, they're daring the other Monaghan players to say, come on, you got to beat us, because he's not beating us. But he would be my full forward in that team, and obviously at 15 would be
David Clifford.
Yeah, of course.
There's no one else.
Yeah, they're the two men that are gonna
shoot Kerry to glory this year. Go on, say it.
Yeah.
Say what you want to say.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they're going to shoot Kerry to glory some year anyway. We hope it's this year. But
2 quiet, shy, retiring lads as well, aren't they?
Yeah, no, they're 2 right good bios, which is what you need, and which is what Kerry need. And but Clifford is he's really good. He's really down to earth. I think he's getting used to being targeted now. I think, like Darren O'Sullivan at minor level, he was targeted, but when you're being targeted by senior players and a group of senior defenders, so it's not just the cornerback just doesn't go out and have words with you, it's every fella has a clip off you when he's near you, and every fella pushes you down to the ground when you're trying to get back up, and they really try and test your pulse. And I think he got a cheap lesson last year in the county championship in Kerry. You know, there was a team at that with him from minute 1 right through to the end of the game. There was a replay, they were at it again, and eventually he snapped. And
is that the day of the brawl?
Yeah, it was it the day of the brawl? It was the
first game.
Yeah, that was the first game. It was the second game. It was the second game. I think he lashed out and got sent off. And I remember, you know, people afterwards saying, "Oh, geez, he left a hold of his head," and I was like, he's getting tormented from minute 1 to from the whole first game and the second game. So
in that situation, is there a procession of Kerry elders who are sent out? Lads, go out there now, sit down with them, tell them what to expect, explain it's going to happen for the rest of your life, and this is what you're going to do. Is there? I
think he's actually smart enough to know it. I think he's a hugely intelligent man.
Notwithstanding, we all know truths, but sometimes it's useful having somebody have a little quiet word.
Yeah, it is.
What will you do the next time this happens?
Yeah, I actually dropped him a line after that game, because I was 20 yards away from it in the stand, and I heard all this shit in the crowd and certain people from the opposition's team kind of giving it to him going away, and I always look at that sometimes and go, these are the same people that are going to be hoping David Clifford brings us to the promised land. And I hate when people, I know it can be parochial, but I wish people would rise above it sometimes in them instances, that when it's your own county guy and he's a big guy, you know, he gets sent off, but the kind of cheer, like kind of a bit of a cheer and, oh, good enough for you, that kind of stuff. Like he's our 19-year-old prodigy that's turned down lucrative money in Australia to come try and bring us back to a tilted All-Irelands, and we've Kerry people kind of jeering him because he's snapped after taking a game and a half of hassle, and you know, people not being clued in enough around to call it to the referee's attention. Look, he's been targeted, he's been pulled, he's been dragged, but you know, at the same time, he knows that when you're a county player and you go back to your club setup, you got to be ready to take on everything, because there's going to be people coming for you. But I think the lesson he learned that day, and it was a county championship quarter final. You know, my kind of message was to him: it's bad and it's tough and hard looking, but it'd be far worse for you if it was an All-Ireland semi-final and you snapped with somebody. And I think you'll take what happened to you today and use it wisely going forward. Because I said, this is the future for you, Dave. It's, you know, like Gooch went through it for 16 years. You know, you're going to go through the same, where you're going to be targeted non-stop by the defenders of the opposition because they're trying to rattle your cage.
And did he listen? Were you?
Well, yeah, we did a little over and back about it. But he's, you know, I was only doing it because I'd been there. I remember getting sent off after my first All-Ireland out against St. Brendan's out in a place called Lerrig, and it was St. Brendan's in the championship would have Artfort with them, and they'd be a real kind of it'd be a real tough place to go in a game. No, you wouldn't want to be fighting for your life heading to Artfort for a big game, but they're part of the St. Brendan's board, and I was out there getting absolutely dogged, hit if I was running down the field at one stage and a fella ran past me and clattered me full palm into the back of the head without me being ready for it. You know, it was like, you know, the old teacher coming from behind you in class and you're not ready for it and you're getting that slap. There's shock and it's sore. And that was all going on, and eventually I snapped and let the guns go. And next thing, the ref, I just slapped him and turned around, and the ref was right there, kind of going, already fumbling to trying to get his red card out super quick. And I remember heading to the sideline, kind of going, yeah, Kieran, that was silly. You should have been ready for that. You should have known that was coming. And I got it even the following year to start the league with Kerry. I was all of a sudden this marked man, from going from an average midfielder to all of a sudden everybody targeting me before games and targeting me during games. And
so it did take you a while to get used to it.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what I was saying to him that time. I said, take this as the lesson. You've learnt your lesson. You've learnt that when things are going bad for you and you're under pressure and there's fellas, you know, you're tying your laces and the fellas coming over bashing you onto the ground and you want to get up and go at him, you got to know that, you know, there's other answers for that type of behaviour, and that's get the ball and bang it over the bar and go out and smile in his face. That's the ideal way. And whereas I didn't have the ability to do that and had to fight fire with fire, which was get back in your face when backs were at me, if I was as good as David Clifford, I would never go down the road that I went down. I'd just say, give me the fucking ball, I'm going to take you on and bury it and walk out and start talking trash to you. Which is why Jordan was the best trash talker in the NBA ever, because
no one could
he could back it all up. So that'd be my 6 forwards. We can put a little poll up and get people to put in their comments. There's probably a few fellas unlucky. Diarmuid O'Connor's unlucky from Mayo. If I had to go on a technicality, because Connolly's not in the Dublin squad now, Diarmuid O'Connor will be drafted right in.
Okay.
But I was asked to pick the best 6 forwards in Ireland right now.
No Conor Callaghan, no Ian Burke, no Shane Walsh, no Damien Comer.
Yeah, there's loads of fellas unlucky. Don't get me wrong. I just have Diarmuid O'Connor written in here as a kind of a 55-minute sub for Connolly when he's tired, because he's lacking match practice at the moment.
We obviously put you on the spot with this morning. We might put you on the spot for the best 6 forwards from your playing career from 2006 to 2018.
Okay, for next week?
Next week, yeah.
Okay. I have a bit of time to think about that. Thanks for giving me a bit of time.
Yeah, no worries. Proper heads up. I wasn't going to, but then we ended up having that good conversation too. So, right, that's it for Shotclock this week. Right, Heineken question 2 for you now. As you know, by this stage we're giving away an amazing prize, the chance to win a trip to Japan for the Rugby World Cup. It's for the Scotland game. We're asking you 3 questions at different stages on this morning's OTB AM. When you've got all 3 answers, just send them in to us. We'll pick a winner then who'll receive one of the 100 green tickets ahead of our special roadshow on the 9th of May. We asked you a question at 8:15. Here's question 2. Who did Ireland beat 50 points to 7 in their opening Rugby World Cup game in 2015? So you can Google that one, and that is it. So
where's the prize for? Where are you going to? If you win the prize,
Yokohama.
Yokohama. I'd say the bartenders in Yokohama will get some land when the Irish and the Scottish land on to town.
They will definitely be.
I hope they have a lot of pint glasses and washers ready.
Just sake, little bits of sake. I'd like to go to the World Cup and this Japan.
Yeah, there's part of me kind of going, I'd prefer to go to one somewhere else, I'll be honest. I wouldn't be, you know, I'll be watching all the games on TV. It won't be something I don't think I'll go all the way down there. I love the rugby, but I just have a bit of a fear for going that far down there, and the lack of English being spoken and the sign and all that stuff.
That's exactly the type of stuff I was like, look at this. Immersion in a weird and
if it was on in Australia, I'd go, or New Zealand, I'd go, even though it's further there, I'd go down there because I'd be able to have the banter and everyone understand. But I suppose you're surrounded by Irish people and all types of people from the tournament. But
you can go to the next one then. I'll take this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to go to it.
It's 4 minutes past 9 this morning on OTBAM. Kieran, we're going to let you go. Thanks a million for coming in today. Loads more to come on OTBAM this morning. Day 1 of the NFL draft is tonight/tomorrow morning.
You staying up?
I don't know. I have a dental appointment at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That
I have an old root canal coming up Monday week.
I've been looking forward to this draft for 3.5 months. So, I mean, I know I'm going to go to bed.
My uncle can fall asleep in the dentist chair. Can you do that? Have you ever tried that?
No.
No? Get the injections. Once the injections are there, they put this yoke in and hold your mouth off. My uncle says he falls asleep.
Yeah, the root canal's no fun.
I know, I've got coming next Monday. Oh, Jesus. But anyway.
It's the smell of the burning.
Yeah, Tom Quilter, I have a good dentist who not kind of, I just said, I don't want to feel shit. I don't care. Inject all around my face. I can go on with a numb face for a week.
Yeah, that sounds good. Kieran, good stuff. Thanks a million for that. Liverpool's title dream is gone, right? We're going to talk about that with Phil Egan after 9 o'clock. But right now we're going to hear from James Horan. He spoke with Maura Trassa ahead of their potentially tricky trip to the Big Apple at the launch of the Connacht Senior Football Championship earlier this week. Have a look.
New York is always a little bit of a slippery eel, isn't it? Because one, there's always a chance that they come at you with a surprise, and 2, it's just the added stress, isn't it, of having to fly transatlantic. It does, bear into your schedule and things.
Yeah, our logistics guy is he's under pressure. He's really under pressure the last couple of weeks. There's an awful lot to it of little bits and pieces. You'd be amazed at what, when you're trying to get a big group of people to a different country to play a game of football. Yeah, so there's all that to it. The flight and the hotels and the hydration and all that kind of thing. But hopefully we've done it before. Played in England and played in New York in 2014. So just trying to get as much of that right as you can, or as much of it as you can control, and try and be as right as we can for 2:15 on May 5th. So we're looking forward to it. There's a lot of families and a lot of people going out for Mayo, which is a big part of it and a big part of the GA. So that's to be welcomed as well. But we just want to get out there and give the best performance we can.
I've spoken to other managers before about that New York gig, and the big worry is, they say, is the surface. It's different to what we have here. You're not used to it, and there's always that little worry that, that could cause an injury just because people aren't used to it. Yeah,
I think the surface has been updated a little bit. It's 4G surface, same as what's in Abbottstown and a few different places. So it's different to what we play on, obviously, but we'll have a couple of games before we go out there. So I don't think that'll be an issue,
And then you've New York. I knew you were going to say we can't assume anything, but we're going to assume you're going to win it. But then you have to kind of recalibrate again and come home. And I'm assuming when you're in New York as well, do you guys get dragged into stuff like fundraising and doing this, that and the other, or is it very difficult to try and keep them on a leash and to keep them still in championship mode?
It's not. These guys they're very self-directed, to be honest. You've seen that over the last number of years. These guys they mind themselves pretty well. There's a couple of things on out there, obviously, as there always is with any county that goes out. There's Mayo Day on May 4th, so we'll go down to that for half an hour or so. But outside that, it's very much getting ready for the game, and it has to be. I'm not just saying that to bore or anything like that, but
I'm not bored.
Right, during the National League, we absolutely just took it one just playing our next game, and let's get as right as we can for that. And depending on how that goes, we'll adjust during the next week and get ready for the next game. And the championship will be the same, So we just want to get out there and give a really good account of ourselves.
The league was good for you in that, and I know you mentioned you've played a lot extra players than perhaps Mayo would have had over the years, and that was always the accusation. It was nearly there. You needed one or two extra players, there wasn't enough young blood coming in. You seem to have bridged that gap now.
Time will tell. The league went very well for us. I remember particularly Brian Reap obviously got the goal against Roscommon in the first game, one of his first games, and we had Michael Plunkett and with Fionn McDonough and Kieran Tracy against Tyrone, in an away game that this, I think it was 1-3, 1-4, even more 1-5 between them, which was very, very good and very encouraging. That those two wins then gave us a great boost, and on we went throughout the league. So it was good, but it's great to see young guys coming in. They've been on the development squad for the last year or two. Some of them have played underage, some of them haven't. But still coming in and just being, I suppose, welcomed in by the experienced guys, and the experienced guys can see straight away how good some of these guys are, and their dedication and motivation to try and get better. So that just harmonises everyone, and so we had a great league campaign as a result.
You have been quite consistent this year. Not saying different, but just it seems to be different. Obviously, it is a very different team. You've got different players, and is there any difference to yourself, the manager, this time around? Have you brought stuff maybe from your last tenure on this go in the merry-go-round that you obviously know a lot more? Does that make you a better manager?
Well, it's certainly slightly different as a manager. I think every training session you have, or every game that you play, you might tweak things a little bit for the next time you have a session or whatever. My principles are still the same of team sport and what we're trying to do. But definitely there's bits and pieces that you do very, very, you'll do differently, and you'll try different things, and maybe some of the stuff that bothered me last time, it's sort of not really that important in the greater scheme of things. So maybe I spend less time worrying about that and more time on what's important. So look, I'm really enjoying it and looking forward to the next game.
What bothered you before?
Nothing really. No, there's always bits with the GA. And intercounty teams, you're always trying to push things and try and get whatever you can to help the team develop. And sometimes there's a bit of pulling and kicking and screaming to try and achieve that. So, but thankfully we're in a good place at the moment, and all things are heading the one way.
Are the purse strings looser this time around from the county board? Is that what you're trying to say politely?
No, I'm not at all. But it's important that everyone works together on it. And look, there's nothing like winning a couple of games either to help things along. So we're very aware of where we are and what we're trying to do, and we're just going to stick at that.
This famed club window that we now have during the month of April, how does that affect your preparations?
It's difficult. The whole fixtures list is difficult for clubs and county, and as a club manager, so I know both sides of the story. The April thing, I'm not sure how it's working. In Mayo they played a couple of league games and they played a championship match. A lot of the games then will be without their county players, and it's similar in a lot of other counties. So it's difficult. I don't have a solution. I don't have the answer, but certainly. We sat down with the county board and the CCC at the beginning of the year, and we agreed what needed to be done and what didn't, and we've stuck to that. So again, it's worked fairly well. I think where there's clarity, and the clubs have clarity as well, that's the start. But certainly there's a lot more that's needed to get it right.
Yeah, because obviously you would have done the club managing as well, and it must be absolutely painful to know you have this month, but not know you have the month, not know what the fixtures are. Then you might play 1 or 2 championship games if you're lucky, and then you're gone for months. I don't know what the solution is either, but it's just very difficult to plan when you don't have certainty. Yeah, and
club management is probably harder than in some ways for planning purposes than inter-county. In that. I was involved with the club last year, and at one stage they had 8 on the Mayo under-20, 3 on the Mayo senior. So you didn't know at the under-20 level when or how many players you'd have. So it becomes very, very difficult to have right training sessions and bits and pieces, and that's where the frustration comes from. So absolutely appreciate. No, the under-20 has changed. The times of it have changed this year, but it's difficult, and I haven't heard the right solution out there yet. So definitely need to get the right people around the table and just thrash it out.
Finally, as a Galwegian, much as it kills me to say it, I've always argued that Mayo are probably the most consistent team in Gaelic football in Ireland. Since the mid-90s, they've been there or thereabouts. And OK, the final hurdle, you could say it hasn't worked out. But if you were to look kind of overall performance, it's amazing what a county this size has achieved when you think of the small pool of players. So what do you think, what is that difference that Mayo might need to just get over that line eventually? Because any other team, you'd say, we won't even look toward an All-Ireland. But because you're Mayo, people will always think of you and All-Ireland finals, and will this be the day? So what's the difference?
There you go. Is there a question? There's a question there, right? Is there?
Yeah. The question is, what can you bring this time around? Your second goal in the merry-go-round, new bunch of players, some old elder statesmen as well. What can you guys bring this year that... And unfortunately, a lot of the time, it's Dublin who are one of the best teams we've ever seen in their lives. What can you bring to maybe surmount those hurdles when they come later in the summer?
Look, all
and I know you're going to say first game first, but it's Mayo, so we have to think about July and August.
The answer is going to be way shorter than the question, right? But basically, I'm just looking forward to working with the players. We're working really hard on a couple of elements of our game. We really are. We've identified them. We think there's something that we can do there that might make us a little bit better in this regards in certain games, certain things. So we've 4 or 5 things identified. We're working hard on them, and hopefully that will improve our performances in games.
Thank you very much for your time, James. I tried to get all the secrets, couldn't do it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was great. Mark Trassa and James Horan. A couple of things to tell you about here before we get to Phil. A very special Saturday panel coming your way this week. We're joined by Richie Oakley, the editor of the Ireland edition of the Times newspaper, Verona Murphy, who's president of the Irish Road Haulage Association, and Shane Coleman, presenter of News Talk Breakfast. It's all with thanks to WeLoveCycling.ie, powered by Skoda. We're going to be talking about recreational cycling, the rise in popularity, the safety issues, and the pros and cons of getting out and about on 2 wheels. That's the Saturday panel on Off the Ball from 1:30 p.m. this Saturday. It's all with thanks to WeLoveCycling.ie, powered by Skoda. Now, Phil is here to talk to us a bit about the football last night.
Yeah, it's
and some other stuff, but let's start with that, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously Pep Guardiola was very impressed with his players. He kind of said after the game, nobody should question the character of these players after the Champions
Spurs game.
I'd almost question Pep Guardiola rather than the players. The first leg, the selection, the team selection.
It was mad.
Overthinks things. And I was wondering would he do the same last night. I thought the selection of company was a bit odd. I could understand playing Company at Turf Moor on Sunday when you know Burnley are going to lump balls into the box on top of Chris Wood or Ashley Barnes. But when you saw Company was there, United had a game plan. Just try and get Rashford isolated against Company.
Yeah, do you think he thought that Lukaku was going to play and that this was going to be like he knows him, he'll be able to deal with them?
Yeah, like maybe that was one
again
thing we could have thought of. But
you're overthinking things a bit too much there, because you're Man City. You get the best team in England.
The only thing is, the other options are John Stones, who hasn't been in great form lately, and Nicolas Otamendi, who is liable to do anything. But Company was ropey enough in the first half an hour.
Yeah.
And he got booked, and you kind of thought that was a strange selection. But yeah, he talked about the character. You can't question the character. Basically, they've, they're nearly going to get 100 points 2 seasons in a row.
Not bad.
So, you can't really question their character. They're used to winning. But look, City are in the box seat, 3 games to play. I mentioned Burnley, that's away. Then they've Leicester 8 days after. See, they've no Champions League now. They've 8 days to rest for that home game against Leicester, which incidentally was moved. That was due to be a 12:30 Saturday game, but because of Spurs and Liverpool in the Champions League, Liverpool got brought back to Saturday, and Saturday evening game in Newcastle, and Spurs are meant to play on Sunday. That got brought to the lunchtime. So they'll have 8 days to recover for that, their last home game of the season against Leicester. Liverpool fans clutching at Brendan Rodgers, he's going to finally deliver a league title for Liverpool. Thought the same about Roy Hodgson a few weeks ago as well. And then they've the away game against Brighton, and Brighton probably be safe by then. But last night's 2-0 win over United, 11th league win in a row. City has had a point ahead of Liverpool. Liverpool play Huddersfield tomorrow, so you'd imagine Liverpool are going to win at Anfield, which will mean a 29th change at the top of the league this season, which is pretty incredible. The goals from Bernardo Silva and Leroy Sané gave City the win, and after the game, Guardiola was asked about the importance of Bernardo Silva this season.
Yeah, we miss him a lot, and Alex and Bernardo miss him a lot in the first game in Tottenham, against Tottenham in Champions League. Bernardo is doing an incredible season, incredible. So second half played like a holding midfielder. So holding midfielder Bernardo, it doesn't matter, fight with Pogba and everywhere. So it's not just today, it's not just a goal, it's all the season was a masterclass, a masterpiece every single game. So it's incredible. Bernardo he's a joy of guy.
Only 24 as well, so he's there for the next half decade.
It's him or Sterling that's going to win the Young Player of the Year award. He's obviously up for the main.
For Young Player of the Year.
He turned 24 at the the season.
The FAI?
He's in the exactly. Well, I mean, FAI awards are given to players that don't play for us anymore, but he also is in the Team of the Year. He's incredible. I remember his performance against Liverpool. He covered over 13 kilometres that night at the Etihad, and last night he got one-on-one against Luke Shaw. Even before the goal in the first half, just put the ball by him, skint him. He was so good. As for United, the fallout, right? They're 3 points behind 4th place Chelsea. They play them on Sunday. Even if they were to beat them, Chelsea would be ahead on goal difference. But United then have Huddersfield away and Cardiff at home. They could do this. They could still finish top 4, even though they've lost 7 of their last 9 in all competitions. Former captain Roy Keane was in the Sky Studios. He was absolute box office. At that stage, after the game, Gary Neville had joined the rest of the guests, and there was a little bit of interaction between Neville and Keane, and Neville actually wasn't as critical of the United performance.
I think United played a decent game. I think United, to be fair, I think that's as good as United have got.
It's about one shot on target, Gary.
I know, but I think that's as good as they've got.
One shot on target at home.
I know, but I think that's that team. What we saw there tonight between Manchester United and Manchester City was the gulfing class between the two teams. I think that's everything United have got. I don't think I looked at any player on that pitch and thought they could have given more. That's what they are. I mean, De Gea, to be fair, he's not normally like
you
this.
You need to see Fred for the second goal then. You're on about players.
But I think that's what he's been since he come.
But that's not giving your all. You're saying they gave it their all. That's cheating. What he done is cheating.
Whoa, that's cheating. That's class.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Keane...
Sky won't have him back. They'll be like, this is too good. I'm sorry. That's too controversial. We can't be having that. You're supposed to be saying this is the best product that's in the world. You can't be accusing the players of cheating.
Because they had him for the game at Anfield, the Liverpool game, which was Mourinho's last one.
Stick him on the non-Liverpool and the non-Man United games. Let's see.
Put him on maybe like one every 2 or 3 months.
No, stick him on all the time. Like you had Thierry Henry on all the time.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing is, I think people will start to see that Keane,
that's all he has.
He just comes in, he criticises modern day players. He made the hair gel reference last night, but I mean, there's a little so you have Carragher who's going to give you on Monday Night Football. You're not putting Roy Keane up on the telestrator on Monday Night Football. You're just not, right? I'd like to see that though.
I mean, you wouldn't be able to have him back. It'd be like, oh, maybe you would. Maybe that's like the next stage of this, where he evolves into somebody who can do that kind of thing and presses the buttons and is dragging the stuff across. I remember
somebody would do it for him.
We had him on about the Liam Miller thing, and we were like, "Oh, can you do Skype?" He's like, "I have a BlackBerry, mate. I'm not doing Skype. I don't know how it works. I have a BlackBerry." I was like, "Really? Do they still make BlackBerries?" They don't. I don't think. I think they haven't made a BlackBerry in about 10 years.
Still got the old Nokia.
He literally got one of those with the roller things, like.
But could they not put when Jamie Carragher was brought in, didn't they bring the thing into his house?
Yeah.
So he got used to it.
Yeah.
I'd say that for Roy.
He'd be hanging his training gear off it.
Yeah. Alexis Sanchez, by the way, I think we need to show people what Alexis Sanchez contributed.
Busy night for Alexis Sanchez, was it?
He came on and that's all he did. That's his touch map.
What?
One touch.
Explain this. For anybody who's listening to this, there's one yellow dot for Alexis Sanchez just beside the centre circle.
Yeah.
That's not right. That can't be right. He came on, I was checking, I thought that maybe, 94th minute to run the clock down at home when you're 2-0 down or something, but no, he came on with 83 minutes gone and 3-4 minutes stoppage time at the end. He had 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Touches the ball once.
But you see Lukaku when he came on, his first touch was so bad. Remember when Andy Keogh was on with Keith Andrews a few months ago talking about Usain Bolt, they described his first touch as like a trampoline.
Yeah.
That's what Lukaku was like last night. Second touch then has to become a tackle. The top four race is just, nobody wants it.
It's the worst top four race of all time, but it's actually the most entertaining.
It looks like this is what we'll be concentrating on the last day of the season. Arsenal obviously missed their chance to go into fourth last night. They lost 3-1 away to Wolves. Fresh from being snubbed in the team of the year, Matt Doherty on target for Wolves. They were 3 up at half time, and basically Arsenal just can't win a game away from home, just 6 all season. Maybe Arsenal are going to win the Europa League, and that's how they get into the Champions League. Chelsea could do the same.
Yeah, it's not beyond the best possibility. Matt Doherty absolutely stolen. His place was stolen by Trent Alexander-Arnold.
I think
cheated.
I'm of the opinion that Matt Doherty is perfect for the way Wolves play, but I don't know what he'd be like in any other team. Remember there was a few rumours that Spurs might be interested in him. I don't know how he'd work in that Spurs team. The Spurs do change. Pochettino does changes during games as well, where they go 3 at the back.
Yeah.
But that's why I always would have picked Coleman ahead of Doherty for the Irish team, because Coleman is an orthodox right back. Doherty could play there, but I just think Coleman would do it better.
Yeah, fair enough. What else have we got first?
Kilkenny goalkeeper Owen Murphy is awaiting the results of a second scan on a knee injury that he suffered in a club game at the weekend. So Brian Cody has a few injury doubts ahead of their opening championship game against Dublin on the 11th of May. Killian Buckley, Conor Delaney, then there's doubts over the fitness of Richie Hogan and James Maher. Last night Tipperary drew at Limerick to book their place in the final of the first phase of the Munster Minor Football Championship. Tip will play Clare despite their 1-point defeat to Waterford. Antrim's Mark Allen's out of the World Snooker Championship. The world number 6 lost 10-7 to China's Zhu Yilong. Former champions Sean Murphy and Neil Robertson will meet in the second round this afternoon. Pádraig Harrington and Shane Lowry are teamed together for this team event on the USPGA Tour. It's the Zurich Classic of New Orleans. So the first round today is 4-ball and the third round as well. Then the second and the final rounds are foursomes. Seamus Power is with David Hearn and Graham McDowell is paired with Henrik Stenson. Tiger Woods, the Masters champion, says he's going to return to Japan for the first time since 2006 to compete in the inaugural Zozo Championship in October.
Ka-ching.
He says, Japan is one of my favourite countries.
Ka-ching.
And he said it's going to be the PGA's first official event in the Asian country.
Ka-ching.
And speaking of money, former unified middleweight champion Gennady Golovkin has parted way with his longtime trainer Abel Sanchez. So 9 years together. And Golovkin released a statement and he thanked Sanchez for the lessons he had taught him, and he suggested he just wanted to take a new step in his career. Golovkin said, "This was not an easy decision for me. It's not a reflection on Abel's professional abilities. He's a great trainer, a loyal trainer and a Hall of Fame trainer. I will announce my new trainer at a later date, but I want to thank Abel for the lessons he taught me in boxing." Abel Sanchez, his statement afterwards, a little bit different. After a great 9-year run, record set and equalled, developing a Hall of Fame career and making it possible to sign a 6-fight, $100 million contract with DAZN, he proposed and insisted on insulting the new trainer compensation schedule. My dignity and honour does not allow me to be screwed like that. It's unfortunate being greedy, being ungrateful, and no ethics, honour or integrity will end this relationship.
Wow. Triple G, no thanks.
I was critical of Sanchez because the first Canelo fight, Triple G won it. Now, it was given as a draw. But if you watch the second fight, it's like they just didn't learn anything from the first fight. And I think what you're looking for in a trainer, obviously during a fight, I'm always kind of fascinated with what they're instructing their fighters to adapt during the fight. But certainly if you've had one fight and you're preparing to take on the same opponent, I want to see changes. And there wasn't. But
yeah. The old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and then it wasn't. That's not how.
I worry about Golovkin anyway, because I think he's just getting that bit too old, and he's probably awaiting the winner of Canelo and Jacobs, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, or next week actually, Saturday week, and he might get a third crack at Canelo, but it just seems he can't beat Canelo because you probably have to knock him out, or because the decision is always going to go to Canelo.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Phil. If you've got our first two answers for our green ticket competition ready, then you better listen up, because here comes question 3. Once you've got all 3 answers, you can send them in to us wherever you're watching us. As you should know by now, we're giving you the chance to win an amazing trip to Ireland against Scotland in Yokohama City on the 22nd of September in the Rugby World Cup. This morning, you can win a green ticket, one of only 100, which will give you access to our special roadshow on the 9th of May, where all 100 of our green ticket winners will join us at the end of the night. One lucky winner will be heading off to Japan. Question 3 is who scored Ireland's first try in the 2015 Rugby World Cup. We'll announce the winner after 9:30. Now, Mike Carlson, good morning to you. Welcome back to OTB AM. How are you doing?
Yeah, good morning. That's a poser. I didn't have that ready, my third answer ready there, so I guess the trip to Yokohama's off.
Well, you can Google that one, because I don't think anybody actually remembers our first. We beat somebody 50 points to 7, so it's been a while.
Lasting 9 years with your trainer is better than most marriages.
Yeah, it's also ending in acrimony about money, so maybe there's a parallel there too. Let's talk about this draft, because so for people who are just getting into the whole notion of how the draft works, maybe we'll just do a quick recap of what exactly happens here. The worst team in American football last year gets to pick the best player available who's just come out of college, and this is kind of the essence of keeping the NFL competitive.
Right, although they get to pick the first player. They don't necessarily pick the best, and that's why the NFL doesn't always rise to a competitive level. Yeah, there's 7 rounds of the draft in reverse order from last year's standings, apart from the fact that the Super Bowl winner and runner-up are the last 2 teams to pick. Regardless of where they finished in the standings during the season. Teams can trade their draft picks. They can trade future draft picks. And the NFL awards picks at the ends of rounds 3 through 7 based on your losing free agents in the off season on a very complicated formula. But basically, if you sign a high-priced free agent and then lose him to someone else, you get a compensatory pick. And some teams are very good at doing that. It's sort of getting short-term benefit from these guys, then getting the compensatory pick and using that in the draft. Primarily among those, the New England Patriots. It's one of the reasons they're able to stay good for so long.
Do you think the draft works just as a concept? I mean, obviously it's so embedded in American sports culture that we kind of just accept that this is how things work. Does it work?
I think it does, basically. If you had unlimited free agency, I don't think it would be as bad a situation as people think, simply because the salary cap would prevent you from overspending and getting all the best players the way you can, say, in the NBA and work your way around the salary cap, or in baseball where you can do it by paying a luxury tax. But at the same time, what you see in college football, of course, is that the very top schools dominate recruiting to the extent where they will take players who never play for them, but who could have reasonable careers at lesser schools and possibly do pretty well. And you could get a bit of that, of roster stuffing in the NFL, the way you see sort of in Premier League football in England or in a lot of the countries, where the 20th guy on the roster is probably better than the 9th guy on a team that's mid-table in the Premier League, but you need him for European duty, and you want to keep him away from other teams if you can.
Yeah, and I suppose the most recent working example of a team using the draft to get good over a couple of years is the Cleveland Browns, who've gone from being completely irrelevant and a basket case to really quite good and very, I don't know if they're going to be attractive to watch, but we hope they will be next year.
It's a really good point, and it was interesting in Cleveland because you had one management group that came in and basically started unloading players, trading them for draft picks, trying to get flexibility with their salary cap. And they did so badly that after 3 years they were fired. The GM was fired. They brought in a new GM, John Dorsey, who's a very good judge of professional talent. And so they were able to use that draft capital they had built up to both draft and trade picks for players and build that team. Plus, they got lucky, I think, in the sense that after half a season last year, they discovered they actually had a good coach on their in their staff who could work with Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb, their two rookies in the backfield, and get the best out of them, which their current coaches hadn't been able to do.
Yeah, Mike, anybody who watches American football knows the value of having a good quarterback, and that's the point about the Browns, is that they also found a good quarterback in Baker Mayfield last year. This year in the draft, we're not quite sure if there is a quarterback who is good enough to be a starting level quarterback for a number of years. Certainly, all the talk at the moment is that Kyler Murray is going to go number one. He's a short guy, and so there's a debate about whether or not he's going to be tall enough to have a full-time professional career as a quarterback, but he's an outstanding athlete who was also drafted as a baseballer by the Oakland Athletics, who obviously, famously invented Moneyball, so they know what they're doing when it comes to this kind of athletic talent. But is he good enough to actually play in the NFL?
It's a fascinating situation. I think he's good enough to play for sure. Whether he's good enough to be the number one pick overall is another question. And of course, it's a very specific conundrum because Arizona used their top pick last year to take Josh Rosen, a quarterback from UCLA. And if you're taking a quarterback with your first pick very high in the draft 2 years in a row, you've got problems. Now, admittedly, they did a terrible job with Rosen in the sense that they didn't build anything around him. No line, not bad, but mediocre receiving core. And David Johnson came back from injury, and they decided they weren't going to use him like David Johnson, but as if he were James Devlin or a fullback or something like that. So Rosen didn't really get a great chance to show what he could do. Last year, when Baker Mayfield came out, there was no consensus that he was the number one guy overall. You had four quarterbacks that people went back and forth on. And so far, Sam Darnold looks like he was, he could have justified a number one pick because he did relatively well for the Jets last year. Rosen remains to be seen. And you have Josh Allen in Buffalo, who's a very unusual set of talents in an opposite way to Murray because he's very big. But Murray played at Oklahoma. He took Mayfield's place. Only 1 year of tape on him. So, we don't have a great idea of what he can do. He's literally only 5/8 of an inch shorter than Russell Wilson, but he's a different kind of player. And Wilson, very interestingly, also played pro baseball in the minor leagues while he was going to college at North Carolina State. But the question about Murray with all small quarterbacks is, A, will they be able to see the passing lanes in front of them in the NFL where things are more compacted than in college in the line? And will he be able to get his passes off over the better linemen? They're all good. They're all big. They all get their hands up in the air. He's very mobile. He can make room for himself, which we saw Mayfield do last year, which we see Russell Wilson do. When the pocket breaks down, his first move is sort of to spin out and then look for something. Whether he's got that presence and whether he's got the accuracy to be able to do that, I think, is a really good question. And then you get down to the point with what are the Arizona Cardinals doing? Now, they fired Steve Wilkes after 1 year. They hired Cliff Kingsbury, who has no NFL track record to speak of, but as a college coach, he coached Baker Mayfield. and Mayfield transferred to Oklahoma. He coached Davis Webb. Davis Webb transferred. He coached Pat Mahomes. He's coached guys in that kind of wide open system. And the question is whether that kind of play will translate into the NFL, because the NFL is moving that way offensively. So quarterbacks like Murray have a good chance. But Arizona needs so much help that you almost think that they're playing poker and hesitating on going all in till the last minute. They could trade Rosen. They could draft Murray and trade him. They could trade that first pick to someone who wants Murray. And John Gruden has been making kind of drooling noises in Oakland about Murray. And Oakland have 3 picks in the first round. The Giants, everybody except the Giants, says the Giants need a new quarterback. And we don't. They've got 2 picks in the first round and another one high in the second. We don't know what they intend to do. But originally Dwayne Haskins, who originally was the best quarterback in the class and now is probably down to number 3, or Donald Jones from Duke, who originally was not even in the first round and now is being talked about the second guy going possibly. They might be there when New York come around at 16, but do they want to take that chance? They may want to move up to take their guy if their guy's not Miller. Oakland may want to move up. Washington need a quarterback long term. Miller might well fit what they do. It's fascinating because you just have a team with so many needs that trading would be the obvious answer to some of their problems. They'd be able to get much more talent.
Yeah, this last year's draft was definitely quarterback heavy. Lamar Jackson was obviously also in that, so there was 5 who ended up going roughly in the first round. This year, there might be 4 who go in the first round, but no one actually believes that there's 4 first round talents. There's a question mark about the guy who goes number 1. What this draft is full of is pass rushers and defensive linemen and not much else. It's like, in terms of talent, it's one of the least exciting drafts, certainly over the last half decade, maybe all the way back to the Jadeveon Clowney draft. and yet it's been one of the most hyped drafts that I can remember.
Yeah, if I were drafting for every team, 7 of the top 10 guys who went would be defensive linemen or edge rushers. And I think that the defensive lineman crop is probably better than the edge rushing crop, because the transition to the NFL is going to be easier for these guys. I think Quinnen Williams from Alabama is probably the best overall prospect, although Simmons from Mississippi State is probably as good as he is, maybe even better. But he tore an ACL at the end of the season, and he has a history with spousal abuse, which may make, that was a couple of years ago, but it may make his draft status drop even lower.
So he's going to the Chiefs, basically.
Yeah, it's possible. One of the things in this draft is that I'd say sort of like the sure thing kind of guys is about 10 deep. You have the odd player at other positions. Devin White, really good linebacker prospect. T.J. Hawkinson, the tight end from Iowa, the better of the 2 tight ends, is a really good prospect. But tight end is not necessarily a top need position for most teams. And then you've got a lot of guys who are all in the same group. And so maybe from about 10, say 15, all the way down to 50, say. If you're smart, if you get the guy who fits your system, or you can coach into your system, you could get pretty good value in the second round, which screams, for example, New England trading out of the first round, rather than going to try to grab a tight end to replace Rob Gronkowski, which there isn't one who can do, trade down and get more players or more draft capital for the next year. Because I think a lot of teams try to do what they do in terms of accumulating picks, trading down, getting value, but very few of them do it for the long term. And everybody says, New England dynasty, blah, blah, blah. They have Tom Brady. That's helped make it easy. But the other thing that they've done is they've always been worried about next year's draft when they do this year's draft. And the reason they can do that is that Belichick is always convinced that he can get a guy of limited talent, a free agent that no one else is particularly interested in, a guy low in the draft, and he can both coach him in their system and adjust their system to his lack of top flight skills. And if more teams sort of realize that would it would make the draft a whole different business. And the odd part is you've now got, say, 5 other teams that are stocked with New England people in the front office or the coaching staff who all understand the way Belichick tries to work, and he'll probably try to do much the same thing.
I wonder though if somehow they haven't actually absorbed the lessons of that. They've sat there year after year watching Belichick do stuff and not actually paid attention to it, because so many of them seem to flop wherever they go.
Yeah, and I think part of it is a big picture thing. I think part of it is that Bill and there's a guy called Ernie Adams in their front office who's he's been with Bill since high school, basically, and I think they see the game the same way, and they do a lot of that advanced planning the same way. And the other thing, of course, is that there's an awful lot of pressure on you to win now to keep your job. Bill doesn't have to worry about his job, so he can continue to plan for the future. Although at his age, you wonder how much more future he needs to plan for. But most teams, when they get in the position to be good, will always succumb to the urge to take the one player they think will put them over the hump, at one position, and will often overpay for that. You don't really want to fall in love with players, especially like in this draft, the shiny hood ornaments that are like wide receivers. DK Metcalf is built like a defensive end. He runs like a defensive back. He could go into UFC or bodybuilding or whatever, and everyone fell in love with him at the combine. But when you watch some of these college receivers, the transition to the pro game is not going to be easy for them. And a lot of NFL teams will draft them and then expect them to fit right in. And they wind up repeating and extenuating their bad habits from college, where they only run 2 or 3 routes effectively, where they can't catch in traffic, where they can't block downfield, all the little things that they require receivers to do. So if you look at this receiving group, it's deep, but you really are going to have to be selective with the guy you take. There are a lot of potentially really good receivers. There's a lot of guys who are really good at what they do, but it's not necessarily what every team wants them to do.
Yeah.
I just think for that reason, it could be a boring draft, but it's a fascinating one, much like the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, it's needle in a haystack when it comes to finding a receiver. There's one last question I want to ask you about, and this is Nick Bosa, who is the 21-year-old brother of Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa, obviously a superstar edge rusher for San Diego, now LA for the Chargers. His little brother apparently is a chip off the old block, both his brother and his dad, and one of Trump's biggest and most vocal supporters on social media, until recently when he scrubbed his entire social media on the basis that, well, I might be going to San Francisco and they won't like me there if I do that. Does this have any impact on whether or not San Francisco pick him, do you think?
I don't think it has any impact at all. In fact, by saying that, he probably made himself more likely to be picked by San Francisco. And basically everybody has him going number 2 to San Francisco. And as I said, there's a lot of really good edge rushers in this draft, but a lot of them are kind of used to that college game where you basically can beat one not so good tackle with speed. And when you get to the NFL, it becomes a lot harder because you're not going to get those chances so often. I'm not sure that Nick Bosa is as good as Joey Bosa. It took Joey Bosa a little bit of time to adjust, but he's really good. Nick Bosa is going to be good. And if you stick him in that San Francisco line, he's got a real chance to excel. There is one guy who's going to go early in the draft from Florida, safety, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who I think with a name like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is probably a Leinster supporter.
Wearing his moccasins and his fake Munster shirt. Mike, enjoy the draft. Thanks a million.
Oh, I will. I'll probably be up all night watching it,
Great to have you back with us. It's Mike Carlson there giving us his thoughts, and you should follow his Twitter feed for your instantaneous reaction to the draft as it happens. I think it's kicking off around about 1 o'clock this morning, Irish time, and we'll obviously be talking about it again over the course of the weekend and tweeting about it, no doubt. Right, time to announce our Heineken Green Ticket winners. We're going to give you the chance to win an amazing trip to Ireland against Scotland in Yokohama City on the 22nd of September. It's a brilliant prize. It's always thanks to Heineken. Each of our 100 green ticket winners will join us at a special roadshow on the 9th of May, where at the end of the night, one lucky winner will be heading to Japan. This morning on OTB AM, we asked you 3 questions. You could only enter when you had all 3 answers. Who finished second in Ireland's pool in the 2015 Rugby World Cup? The answer was France. Who did Ireland beat 50 points to 7 in their opening game? The answer was Canada. And who scored Ireland's first try at the 2015 Rugby World Cup? The answer was, of course, Sean O'Brien. So the winners of this morning's Heineken Green tickets are Joe Gallagher and Aisling Towie. Congratulations to both of you. You both won one of our 100 green tickets for the roadshow on the 9th of May. At the end of that night, one of those 100 green ticket winners will be winning an all-expenses paid trip to Japan for the Rugby World Cup. It's all thanks to Heineken. Now, before we finish up on OTB AM this morning, busy few weeks ahead in Irish racing. The 2019 Punchestown Festival gets underway from the 30th of April and runs all the way until the 4th of May. That's the Saturday. On Thursday, it's the Close Brothers Commercial Finance Mayor's Listed Novice Hurdle, and that's going to take place on Thursday the 2nd of May. We've got a daily prize of 2 tickets with entry to the reserved enclosure at Punchestown, including lunch that day to give away. We'll also throw in a shuttle bus too, and an overnight stay with an evening meal for 2 at the Louis Fitzgerald Hotel. For the overall winner, to be with a chance of winning, you have to tune in to Off the Ball tonight from 7 o'clock. We've got John Giles and the football show, and we'll be bringing you our Ruby Walsh, Robbie Power Punchestown preview from the Alex Hotel on tomorrow night's Off the Ball. OTB AM is back tomorrow morning with Adrian Barry, Paul Howard in as our guest co-host. Obviously, most famous at the moment as the creator of Ross O'Carroll Kelly, and also Coppers the musical, but in his previous career he was one of the country's best sports writers as well. He is also, of course, a Liverpool superfan, so we'll be getting into the details of that. And a reminder, of course, about our Saturday panel, which is coming your way this week. It's a cycling special. Richie Oakley, the editor of the Ireland edition of the Times, Verona Murphy is president of the Irish Road Haulage Association, and Shane Coleman, presenter of News Talk Breakfast. It's all thanks to WeLoveCycling.ie, powered by Skoda. Talking about recreational cycling and all the issues around it, cycle lanes, the enough provision of them, what we can do to get more people out cycling, and just what we can do to make it safe to cycle in our cities, and how the motorists and cyclists can actually coexist peacefully. That's the Saturday panel coming your way on Off the Ball from 1:30 on Saturday. And that's all we've got time for on OTB AM this morning. We'll see you tomorrow around about 7:45. Good luck.